Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good afternoon. Yeah, thank you to Peter Cardwell. Welcome to the home of common sense. Man alive, we got a whole load of stuff going on it's our last Friday show before this year, in fact. What about that? Coming up on the programme, Tories and reformers, you've been hearing say that Labour are running scared after ministers invited 63 councils to postpone May's local elections. That potentially would deny around about 10 million voters, say half of those councils are Labour-run, so the move could limit the party's losses and bolster Sir Keir Starmer's faltering leadership. Your thoughts on that? Are Labour trying to control democracy? Can you give me your overarching opinion on this story, please? Also this afternoon, on the other side of the House, Kemi Badenoch has jumped in on the idea of introducing misogyny classes in schools. The Tory leader has called the sexism classes a distraction and urges Labour to target cultures that disrespect women instead. I mean, if you ever wanted a classic example of Labour statism, it is that we will reprogram your brain thing to young boys. There are other ways of getting kids to behave. And Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, has blocked ECHR guidance on enforcing women-only spaces as trans-exclusive, stalling publication for months, despite the Supreme Court ruling affirming that sex means biological sex under the Equalities Act. All of those stories and a whole lot more as well. We're talking boxing a little later as well. There's a big fight going on this weekend, don't you know? Details to come. 0344 499 1000. That is where you'll find us. You can drop us a voice note on the same number, or you can message 87222. So Keir Starmer accused of running scared of voters as he's paved the way to cancel elections across the country. I mean, you really can't make this stuff up. We've already had some of this. I'll come to that in a second. But this particular move has seen the government inviting 63 councils to postpone their elections next May. Now, this is widely seen by many as a sort of a litmus test for Keir Starmer's leadership. Of the 63 where election delays are being considered, 26 are run by Labour, 12 Conservative, 10 Lib Dems, and 1 is run by Independents. The rest are in no overall control. So the move would rob, as I just mentioned, around about 10 million people of a vote in May. This is seismic, and of course in some areas this isn't the first time this has happened. We know that this year elections were cancelled. Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex, Hampshire, West Sussex all had them stopped. All of this means that councillors could go 7 years before facing voters. I mean, this is such a nonsense. There were apparently good logistical reasons for the first crop of cancellations, but this 63 thing, inviting councils to cancel them. I mean, what else could that mean to you other than a government who are absolutely terrified of being given a greater kicking than the one they are almost guaranteed to get? So what better way to address that than reduce it? So we reduce the level of severity, the wounds that will be received by the Labour government in May are going to be seismic. By any measure, I know you can never tell, and, you know, there's polls, schmoles and all the rest of it, but this is looking like car crash territory for Keir Starmer come May. The entirety of Wales, Scotland, mayoral elections, county councillors, all over the place. This could be absolutely vast. And, of course, the one party that is perhaps more animated, understandably, is Reform. Nigel Farage says turkeys don't vote for Christmas. Tory county councils look set to collude with Labour to keep their control until 2027, he said. Only a banana republic bans elections. That's what we have under Keir Starmer. He says Kemi Badenoch must instruct her council leaders to allow elections to go ahead. And of course she will, because that will be the only opportunity the only option really in this story that she actually has. Otherwise, it looks like the Conservatives are doing precisely the same thing, despite the fact that Conservatives can also get a bit of a kicking in May's elections as well. It's all reforms to lose, basically. These are going to be, again, according to polls, and no reason to believe, given the level of consistency of those polls, that most of those predictions will come to pass, which means, in particular, Keir Starmer's Labour Party are absolutely, almost irreparable in terms of the damage this would do. And what better way to address it than, well, cancel some of those elections? Robert Jenrick for the Tories said even during the pandemic, elections were not cancelled for a second year. Slashing jury trials, cancelling elections, these are the hallmarks of a government that doesn't trust the people, he said. And one spokesman in this, who's a voice worth listening, is Richard Wright. He's the chairman of the District Council Network, said the normal 4-year election cycle should be broken only in the most exceptional circumstances. He says this has the potential to undermine faith in our cherished local democracy. Well, is that what you see Labour are trying to do here? To control democracy? That, to me, would have been, even in July last year, when Keir Starmer was elected, I didn't like the cut of his jib. I never thought he was going to be anything other than pretty appalling. At best, he was going to be mediocre. That bar was set too high, it turns out. It's been a horror show for so many different reasons for Labour, but never did I think we would be this far down the nefarious rabbit hole where we have the cancellation and the talked about cancellation of democratic elections. How do you read that? And if this is your neck of the woods that was affected the last time around, what are you making of this invite, an invite to local councils to cancel their election? And you can imagine some of those Labour councils will probably go, yeah, we'll postpone them. We'll postpone them. So it's damage limitation for Keir Starmer. 0344 499 1000. Let's get a word on this and the other big stories of the day. Joining us today, Charlie Downs, campaign director with Restore Britain. Afternoon to you, Charlie.
Hello, Ian.
Good to have you with us. So, big story this, not the first time we've heard it. It's another raft of potential cancellations. This time it could be big. 63 councils being invited to essentially postpone the democratic vote. Half of those areas are councils that are Labour run. The move could limit the party's losses, of course, as I was saying, and perhaps bolster the wounded and irreparable Keir Starmer's faltering leadership. Let's have a listen to one Labour MP who really stuck her foot in it now after what she said just the other day.
Local elections, council elections will go ahead in 2026. That has been our position. That continues to be our position. Now, as a responsible government, you would expect that if there are extenuating circumstances on the ground in particular councils, we will have that conversation with them. But we are as up for elections as anyone else.
That's one Labour minister, Miata Fahnbulleh, talking about the guarantee of elections, Charlie. Half an hour later, they're talking about cancelling 63 of them.
Yeah, it's not a great look, is it? I'm a big believer in reading between the lines with stories like this, because I think it's very easy to look at this and think, well, you know, Labour are running scared and they're cancelling democracy and all of that sort of thing. And whether that is the case or not, I don't know. I mean, it's certainly convenient for them that these local government reforms are happening at this time when they are being so utterly slaughtered in the polls. But the reason for these prospective local election cancellations is quite interesting to me, because it is this very comprehensive programme of local government reform that's going to see district councils and county councils merged in the name of efficiency. And I can absolutely believe that there is a huge amount of redundant work done by those councils, a huge amount of inefficiency, a huge amount of wasted time and taxpayer money, quite frankly. I mean, I speak to people who work in local government, whether that is as staff or elected councillors, and all of them do say that, as with every level of government, there is a huge amount of waste and inefficiency. So in a way, I can kind of see where they're coming from with this merger plan. But at the same time, it does make me uneasy, because I'm a big believer in subsidiarity. I believe that power should be exercised at the lowest feasible level. And I think that the concept of the district council is very good, because it means that you can have solutions that are tailored to the local situation, and rather than having these kind of sweeping one-size-fits-all solutions that come from on high, which is very much how this Labour government seems to like to operate. And that's, I think, what they're trying to do with these local government reforms. And the added bonus of those reforms is that they not only lead to local election cancellations, in which they would probably get killed, but also it's going to radically reduce the number of elected positions in councils, because of course you're going to have these unitary councils now rather than district and county councils, which means that the actual number of councillors, unitary councillors, is much lower, which means that there's far fewer positions for Labour to get slaughtered in, and more of that governing power is going to be in the hands of unelected individuals. So yes, this is an attack on democracy, but not in as direct a way as I think a lot of people realise, because it's the programme as a whole, this merger between county and district councils, that I think is the far more insidious thing that's happening here.
Yeah, and of course this goes back to many of those things that sort of Labour, I suppose, in their own world, are quite good at doing. You sort of gerrymander a situation, essentially, so that it's not seen as political, it's seen as democracy, but it favours you. So there's almost an irredeemable reality about that Labour aren't going to put any of this in place unless they think it's something that comes up to their advantage.
Well, yeah, I think if you read a lot of Labour's literature that they published before the election last year, like there was a document called like New Britain or something like that, very Soviet, very dystopian. And indeed, if you read the papers that come out of the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change, they always speak in the language. It's a very managerial worldview that they hold. They always speak in the language of efficiency. Blair is on record as saying, I think in June this year, that the state needs to be augmented and optimized and shrunk so that AI can be used in as many areas as possible. And this is something that he's been talking about for a very long time at this point. His kind of vision for the country is this package of technocratic policies like digital ID, using AI for everything and all this sort of thing. And at one level, again, I do understand if you were the kind of person who sits in one of these offices in Whitehall or elsewhere, looking at the country as if it is just a series of spreadsheets rather than a nation that people love and which is people's homelands. It does make sense to me that you'd be thinking in this way. But actually, when it comes to the lived reality of most people in this country, they don't want to see their country made as efficient as possible in the name of kind of saving as much money as possible.
Gordon Brown was there
on paper. Yeah, but when it leads to a feeling that they aren't represented in their own system and that their decisions about their lives are being made by people that they don't know, that they haven't elected, I think that actually people are going to get angry.
Yeah, I think so. I was about to say Gordon Brown was, he had a PhD in this stuff. He loved the whole idea of, they used to talk about spreadsheet Phil when Philip Hammond was the Chancellor, but Gordon Brown just loved all of that kind of databasing and nice, neat, tidy, everything in a row, everything's available at one click. They can see where it all, the idea of putting the electorate into these beautifully neat and tidy kind of boxes and automatically available information at a push of a button over there at the ministry, etc. And this is more of the same, really. It falls into the same category. I want to move to this story. I know you're going to have big views on this, Charlie. Kemi Badenoch calling Labour's sexism classes a distraction. She urges immigration controls targeting cultures that disrespect women would be a better plan. This, of course, was under the sort of rewire boys' brains policy that came up yesterday, with the Labour government suggesting boys need classes, essentially, and education in this area, so they know that, if they come across pornography online, that is not the norm. That was how it was sold to us. I'm deeply uncomfortable with the state doing things like this, Charlie.
I mean, it is quite amazing how they will just come out and say, yes, we are going to socially engineer your children to think in a certain way about what are actually very fundamental issues, which is the relationship between the sexes. I mean, there's nothing more foundational to society than that, right? I think, marriage, in my view, as a Christian, is the foundation of society. And I think we do have a very, we have a very, I think, damaged view of what the relationship between the sexes should look like. I don't disagree with Labour in that sense, but actually the way that, the solution that Labour have and their diagnosis of the problem is completely backwards, because what they're basically saying in suggesting this policy of having these sexism classes in schools is that we haven't been feminist enough. We haven't been feminist enough, and therefore young boys are still, misogynistic animals who don't know how to treat women and all of this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And actually, the opposite is the case. We have been too feminist, and that is what has led, I think, a lot of young men towards figures like Andrew Tate. And I'm not a fan of Andrew Tate. I think that the view that he peddles is just as destructive as the feminist view, because it fundamentally misunderstands the proper relationship and ordering of the sexes. But actually, as a reaction to the stifling, smothering kind of culture that young men have grown up in for the last, I'd say, 30 years at least, I can understand why young men would go towards a figure like that, because it's at least something. It's at least somebody who's going to allow them to be men in a certain sense. Now, again, I don't think that the sort of, actually dismissing and being disrespectful of women style that he brings is particularly healthy. And actually, I think if you live out the kind of principles that he tries to propagate, which is being with a huge number of women, having, multiple wives. I mean, this is something he actually advocates for. That's not going to make for a good society. The places in the world that pursue that kind of social agenda don't tend to turn out very well. And actually, it is the monogamous marital culture of the West that has, in large part, led us to have, in past times, hugely successful, great societies. And so I think that boys should be absolutely taught how to be men, but the state's conception of what it means to be a man, I think, is utterly backwards, ideological, and basically, at the end of the day, wants them to be more like girls.
And Labour wouldn't even recognise the conversation we're having here, Charlie. The idea that boys should be taught how to be men, and I don't know why that would even be controversial. That would be it would be criminal not to educate boys in that respect, in the same way not to educate girls in a similar respect. It doesn't mean one is better than the other. That doesn't, of course, come into it, only in the minds of those people who would be against what we're saying. It's not a pecking order.
This is a really important point, Ian, because this question of whether men are better than women or whether women are better than men. I mean, the feminist view is a supremacist view. This feminist view actually does think that women are better than men, and you only have to listen to what they've been saying, whether that's in the media or in Hollywood or in academia, for the last, as I say, 30 years at least, to see that they actually hate men. They think that men are just evil congenitally, which is a very, very strange view, a deeply sexist view, as it happens.
Yes.
But actually, the right relationship is one of partners. The right relationship between the men and women of society is partnership and a kind of symbiotic relationship, because the sexes are complementary to one another. And I think any attempt to make one like the other is going to fail. And actually, that has been the project also of feminism, is not just to make men more like women, but it's also to make women more like men. By encouraging them to pursue a career above family, to pursue wealth above creating a home and cultivating a household and having children. And I think that has led a lot of young women to be very unhappy. But this is not something that's ever spoken about by our government, because actually it serves the economic system that we have to have as many women as possible in the workplace and out of the home, because it means that they have access to a larger pool of workers, which they need to service this kind of debt-based, interest-based economy that we have that demands constant growth. Sure. And therefore, the construction of a traditional household, a one-income household, is very much not in their interest. And so this is the point. Men and women are not the same. Men and women are complementary, and they are equal in a metaphysical sense. They are of equal worth, but they're not the same, and they therefore should not be treated the same. Men should be treated differently to women. Women should be treated differently to men. And it's absolutely not sexist to say that. And the way we treat women and men, that is the question here. But I think what the Labour government are saying is basically that boys and men should never dare ever to do anything that smacks of masculinity, because that is dangerous.
Spot on. Charlie, stay with us. Equality is not in any doubt on these kind of questions. Of course, women are equal to men. Who would say, particularly the good-looking ones, who would say any different to that in the 21st century? 0344 499 1000. Charlie Downs back with us for more. Coming next on Talk.
You know, it's no good saying, oh, we've got a wonderful multicultural society and diverse is our strength, when you've got one group attacking another. That's no good. We cannot have this. Our Jewish friends and colleagues must feel safe in this nation, and I back them 100%.
Well, we appreciate your support, and it just makes common sense, doesn't it, Mike?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Andrew in Salisbury says, are Labour trying to control democracy? Hell yes. This is pure gerrymandering. This will cost Labour a lot in the long run. And similarly, Sue says, Labour are not controlling democracy, they're abolishing it. Well, right, yeah. I mean, if you are cancelling elections, so we're not cancelling, we're just advising they could be postponed. Oh, get in the bin. This is in all but name a cancellation. Charlie Downs is with us. Thank goodness for that. And happy Christmas, by the way, Charlie, because you can say that now. We're only less than a week away. It's our last Friday show of the year, and you're on it. What an accolade that is.
Indeed, yeah. I don't know if you can actually see my Christmas tree in the shop. Maybe you can. But it's looking magnificent.
Is it? I can see a bunch of flowers in a vase. Is that your Christmas tree?
That's not, no, that's because of my wife. I realised that was there when we went on, actually, and I thought, oh my goodness, people are going to think that I've got a nice set of beautiful pink flowers in my flat. But no, I can assure you that was not me that bought
Well, there's
those.
nothing wrong with a beautiful set of pink flowers, you know. There's nothing wrong with that, you know.
Well, maybe not. Maybe I should embrace my feminine side.
Well, I think, yeah, we can help you through the stage, you know. Buy you some Communard CDs, bit of Wham, you know. It's no problem at all. We're here to help, Charlie.
I was cracking up, by the way, and when you said that equal rights only apply to the hot ones, which is...
Exactly. Yeah, somebody somewhere will take that seriously, which is interesting. Let's go to this story. 1 in 8 Britons to be on disability benefits by the end of the decade, which is, I should warn everybody, is in only about 4 years' time. Official forecasts say that 1 in 8 people will be on disability benefits by 2030, taking the total up to 8.7 million. So we're looking there at more than 10% of the adult population, of course. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch ripped into Labour on this very issue. Let's have a listen.
All of us will have physical and mental challenges at some point in our lives. All of us will. But in an age in which 1 in 4 people now self-report as disabled, it's clear that we are now going to have to draw a line on what health issues the state can support people with. The government can't do everything. So this is a review that we will do carefully over time with medical and employment experts to make sure that we get it right.
Kemi Badenoch. Charlie, this is, you know, whatever the reality is here, if somebody is, obviously we're not talking about somebody who's clearly disabled. I think we all have no problem of paying taxation. In fact, I quite enjoy the fact my taxation helps people who are in a predicament or a situation where they need assistance. But when we're going to have we've just crunched the numbers here, 15.3% of the adult population will be on benefits, disability benefits, by 2030. What the heck is going on?
Well, let's not forget that will be coupled with, as of the most recent budget, a record high tax revenue by 2030, which will be at 38% of GDP. So nearly half of what we make as individuals is going to be taxed and used to pay for things like this. And I'm like you, I'm a big believer in the welfare state. I think properly constituted, it is an absolutely essential thing for any modern country to have, because I don't think we should be having people going hungry. I don't think we should be having people who don't have a place to live. And I don't think we should be allowing people with genuine disabilities who physically cannot work to go hungry and to go cold. I think that it's actually a very unfeeling and unchristian society that would allow that to happen. But with that being said, What we have is not that in this country. What we have is a system that is so easily exploited by unscrupulous individuals, and set up in such a way that that's very easy, very straightforward. And there are these kind of there's this cottage industry of influencers on TikTok and Instagram and elsewhere, basically teaching people how to most effectively exploit the system. And I think it's just because of how the system is set up. It's because we do have this absolutely hulking state that does not do what it is supposed to do. And we have these huge kind of, these huge teams that are there, civil servants that exist nominally to make sure the system is doing what it's supposed to be doing, but who actually seem to constantly do the opposite, who actually seem to make the system as inefficient as it possibly can be. And we were talking about government efficiency earlier and how it can be a bit of a Trojan horse for stripping away democracy and stripping away representation from people. But in this case, there is a genuine issue with efficiency, because it's obvious that there is a huge amount of exploitation happening when it comes to the welfare state. Because right now, universal credit overall, there's already 9 million plus people on universal credit. Yep. And so that's not even just talking about disability. So we're talking about 9 million being on disability come 2030. Yeah. How many are going to be on universal credit? It's probably
exactly. This is,
and that's very worrying.
We keep talking about the unsustainable nature of the welfare system, and it's not just this is not anecdotal or kind of casual projections. This is quite literally a reality now, and that reality will become more and more troubling as we go through the years.
Speaking of democracy, Ian, and Labour subverting democracy, this may well be, I think, another example of that, because I think it's a very straightforward thing that we're seeing here, and that is that Labour are buying votes. Labour are just bribing people with money, because they're saying, if you vote for us, you will get your disability benefits, and if you don't, you won't. Yeah. And so for those people who are literally just looking to make a quick buck and sit around on their backside all day, of whom there are a great many, many of whom are foreign nationals, by the way, right? And a great many British nationals are this way, but a lot of them are foreign nationals. And a lot of them are people who have come here in the very, very recent past, which is, I think, a separate issue worth addressing. But those people are Labour's base. Like, those are the people Labour are trying to appeal to, because they don't have anything better to offer them. They don't have a genuinely positive vision for the country. So what they're going to do is just give them as much money as possible.
Let's move to this story. Final one. We'll have to be a little quick on this, Charlie, but we can do it. The next story, it's all about swearing, this story, or more specifically about the words you really want to say when things go wrong or get tough, but probably shouldn't be said before the watershed, unless, of course, you are Pesci and De Niro.
You want me to get out of my own town?
Yeah, I said let the blow over for a while so I can run the casino. Anything goes wrong with the casino, it's my it's not yours, it's my
I don't know whether you know this or not, but you only have your casino because I made that possible. I'm what counts out here, not your country clubs or your TV shows. And what the you doing on TV anyhow? You know, I get calls from back home every day. They think you went bad.
That is just one of the best Hollywood scenes ever. The desert scene from Casino. You're not much of a swearer, Charlie, are you? I don't think I've heard you swear, unless you can really go for it at time to time.
I don't remember that scene from Home Alone. Anyway. No, I mean, I've been a bit of a swearer in my time, but I've been thinking about this a lot recently, because I do think that swearing it's so ubiquitous nowadays. And I was raised, my parents were very, very strict when it came to swearing. I remember an occasion where I first heard one of those words that was mentioned in that clip, and I said it, and my dad came down on me like an absolute ton of bricks. And so I knew what was what from pretty early on in that department. But I do think that actually the lax attitude that we have to swearing in this day and age is actually not good for our society, because I think we forget the power of these words and what these words actually mean. Because again, I don't mean to keep bringing it up, but from the Christian perspective, swear words that make light of or debase something that should actually be a revered and sacred act, like the F word, quite frankly, which refers to something that should be something that's held in very high regard, the marital act, if you want. Something that debases that and makes it low and makes it guttural and turns it into a curse. it's actually not great. And it's not great to have a lot of people using that kind of language in your society. Because what does that then do to how we think about that act in our minds? And I think, the same can be said of a number of other swear words that people tend to use, that I myself use. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm some kind of angel here, because I do absolutely use them. And some of my favorite comedy is based on using them, like The Thick of It, for example. I mean, it's literally every other word.
Yeah, of course.
But I think that this story that's come out that says that swearing makes you more successful is quite subversive, because it's like, is that really the kind of society that we want to live in? Like, I always remember getting really uncomfortable when I was younger, when somebody would swear in the presence of my younger brother, because I did feel this kind of protectiveness of him, that actually he shouldn't, as a child, he shouldn't be hearing that kind of language, because that kind of language, again, it makes light of and it turns into, debases things that should actually be treated with respect.
Yeah,
and that's the fundamental point here for me. And so I don't like this narrative that we should be swearing more. I don't think that's good. I don't think it's going to create a good society for us.
Yeah, it is kind of strange. The idea that it somehow, catapults you into a better tier on the career ladder is, a bit nonsensical. But, listen, we'll debate that as well. Some people can swear and be very funny. You're funny. Other people are, maybe it's a little more... a bit more jarring and a bit more serious. Thank you to Charlie Downs. Always good to have Charlie on. Have a great Christmas, Charlie, campaign director with Restore Britain. Thank you to him. We'll take comments on all of these stories. And, of course, over to you on the big one as well. Are Labour trying to control democracy? We'll get a couple of voices on that in just a moment. 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
So let's get straight into it then. The Tories and Reform say that Labour are running scared after ministers have invited 63 councils to postpone next May's local election. This will potentially deny 10 million voters a say. Now, with around half of those council Labour-run, with half of the council's Labour... Sorry, you've got a cursor right over that word, Finn. The move could limit the party's losses and bolster Sir Keir Starmer's faltering Labourship. Let's have a listen to one Labour minister sticking her foot in it a couple of weeks ago.
Local elections, council elections will go ahead in 2026. That has been our position. That continues to be our position. Now, as a responsible government, you would expect that if there are extenuating circumstances on the ground in particular councils, we will have that conversation with them. But we are as up for elections as anyone else.
Except they're not. John Rentoul, chief political commentator at The Independent. What's gone wrong here, John? Whether you're left, right or somewhere in the middle, surely we can all smell a rat here.
Well, exactly. It doesn't look good, does it? If Labour were as confident of their position as that minister implied, they would be going ahead with these, and it just looks as if, whatever the real reasons might be, I mean, and they're rather, I mean, if there are real reasons for it, they're rather sort of bureaucratic and pettifogging about.
Yeah.
To do with the reorganisation and the abolition of a layer of district councils. But I mean, why that means you can't have elections, it doesn't seem obvious to me or to anybody else. And Reform are going to just scream blue murder about this.
Of course. And when the first lot happened, which they announced last year, but they were for elections this year, there was a crock of Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex, Hampshire, West Sussex were all affected. We were given sort of good, solid logistical reasons apparently why they couldn't happen, and I think many people thought, OK, well, maybe there is a reason behind that specific cancellation. Seems a bit odd, but nonetheless, we'll roll with it. But this seems incredibly loose, inviting 63 councils, which is almost pleading 63 councils to not have elections.
Well, no, I think it's actually, I think this is Labour trying to be too clever, actually, because they're mostly Conservative county councils that are concerned here. And I think they're hoping that the Conservatives, who are also in the doldrums and running scared of reform, they're hoping that the Conservatives will ask to have their elections postponed, and then they could then Labour can say, oh, well, it's nothing to do with us. It's the Conservative county council. So blame them. But it just doesn't. It looks terrible either way. And as far as Reform are concerned, for them, Labour and the Conservatives are the uni party. They're the two old parties conspiring together to abolish elections, and it plays extremely well for them.
Of course. I would imagine the Conservatives, Kemi Badenoch couldn't be seen to back this, though, could she?
No, James Cleverly has been out and about for the Tories, saying he doesn't agree with it. It's abolishing democracy and all the rest of it. But that doesn't mean he's necessarily going to be able to persuade Conservative councils not to ask for the postponement of elections. So it could get all a bit messy. But the only winner is going to be Nigel Farage, I'm afraid, and that's what I can't understand about Labour just playing into Reform's hands. It's exactly the same with this deciding to go to war with Westminster journalists as well by abolishing one of our daily briefings. I'm going to abolish the afternoon daily briefing.
Yes, journalists don't need that anymore.
Yeah, but it just looks as if they're running scared.
Of course it does.
From accountability.
Yeah, the optics are
Nigel
terrible.
Farage is going to have a field day.
Yeah, completely. And of course, the projections and predictions are that Reform will do rather well at these local elections. And I know polling can be a strange old thing, but they're pretty consistent in favour of Reform right now.
Well, and Reform did extremely well in this year's local elections in May. They're sweeping the board in all sorts of unlikely places, in effect replacing the Conservative Party as the main anti-government party.
Sure.
And that's likely to continue in May 2026. And that's, if it looks as if the government and indeed the Conservative Party is scared of that, then that's only going to increase the Reform vote.
Spot on. John, thank you as ever for your time. A man who knows his way around Westminster and all the mechanics behind it as well. John Rentoul, chief political commentator at The Independent. Let's speak with Sebastian Salek, Labour councillor at Waltham Forest, and commentator on many issues that we regularly speak to on this. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Sebastian, but I reckon you're going to tell me it's a fantastic idea that Labour are cancelling democracy.
I think it's a fantastic idea that they're bringing in metro mayors. This is an unfortunate consequence of that. I don't think anybody really wants to cancel elections. If you're involved in politics, hopefully you're a big believer in democracy, and that means having regular elections. It just so happens that if these do go ahead, the councillors that are elected, some of them will only be in place for a year or so, and then their local council area is shaken up, the structure's completely changed, and they're out of a job, which is a lot of wasted effort, it's a lot of wasted time, it's a lot of wasted taxpayers' money. And if there's one thing I know that your viewers and listeners hate, it's wasting taxpayers' money. So here's one way of avoiding that.
Well, you could go the other way and say, well, we'll put off the kind of new metro situation for another year or so. I mean, it's democracy, isn't it? You have an election at a certain time. Politicians are elected in, whether they're district or county councillors or MPs, etc. They're elected in for a set period. That is the democratic system. That is our way. Now, people could change it over time, but right now we don't have people in power for 7 years. That's what this would mean, that they would retain those positions. That's usurping democracy. So that's pivotal to this, isn't it? That's the centre point that the discussion has to be based on, not all the bureaucracy that goes around it.
Yeah, I see the debate, and look, it's not ideal. I don't think this is what anybody.
Well, I mean, that puts it mildly, Sebastian. It's not ideal. I mean, this is cancelling a democratic or inviting 63 councils to cancel an election.
And that's the crucial point. It's their choice as well, and these are councils of all political colours, because they have a lot of work to do on their reorganisation. And what you're doing then is asking them to take their eye off that, focus on winning re-election, and you slow down the pace of change. And I think so many of the discussions that you and I have, I'm always saying, God, this is going to take time, and this is one thing that can happen more quickly. And if that means cancelling elections, I think it's a price worth paying, because it means we get those metro mayors in place, we get simplified local government, which is better for residents. It's more accountability, it's more power for them. So the outcome is really good. We just have this unfortunate hurdle of we have to delay some local elections by a year or two.
But 26 of those councils, so just shy of half, are Labour run. I mean, the smart money, Sebastian, says that all of those 26 will go, yeah, good idea, we'll cancel. Because your party's going to get annihilated. You do know that.
Well, this is really interesting. The numbers I have are 18 are where Labour has a majority out of 63 councils that are being asked.
OK, I've got 26 here, so...
Is 136. So you're looking really at 18 councils out of 136. If you were some conniving evil genius in Labour Party HQ trying to work out how to disrupt democracy...
There's a few of them.
Stalling 18 councils, even if assuming they all say yes, is probably not the way I would do it. So I think the idea that this is some kind of...
Well, it could be millions of... There's millions of votes. In 18 councils, there's millions of votes.
Sorry?
In 18 councils, there are millions of votes.
Oh, yeah, no, that's true, but it's still only...
So it's not insignificant,
If you're trying to change the course of what you think the local elections in the whole of England are going to turn out to be.
But if it was only
18 Labour councils, do you want to delay? Probably isn't going to have.
But if it was only one, the same point on democracy, I would argue, Sebastian, stands, and that is that you can't monkey with it. And if you want to bring in a new system at some point, like all things that they change, you need many years of notice so that you don't upset the democratic process. But with this, the other parallel story still stands as well, doesn't it? And that is that you would reduce the absolute kicking that your party leader is going to get in May would be, I mean, it might not be significant enough for everybody to notice, but he can say, well, it wasn't 10 million, it was only 8 million that didn't vote for me this time.
Again, look, I think, and we're making a big assumption here because we're talking about an event that is 5 months away. Assume Labour gets annihilated. Let's just run with that theory. Whether they lose 18 more or fewer councils isn't going to move the dial. So I think if you're trying to avoid that, and this is some kind of electoral play, then it's really not the avenue to be going down. I don't think it is some kind of conspiracy. I'm not much of a conspiracy theorist myself. I really just think it's the unfortunate consequence of trying to bring in better accountability for local leaders, which is something that we've needed for a long time in this country. Many other countries have powerful local mayors. We don't have that, and I think it'd be a brilliant thing for anybody who lives in an area that's going to get one of these.
On that point, Sebastian, thank you. Have a great weekend and happy Christmas. Sebastian Salick, Labour councillor for Waltham Forest and commentator on these issues. I think it would make a difference. The figure I had was 26 of those councils are Labour. Sebastian said he thought it was 18. That would be but believe me, if you're about to get an utter trouncing and a public lashing at the elections, then I promise you, every one extra you can get is a bonus. You want that. You're not going to let anything slide in that respect. So I would politely suggest that those Labour councils that are being invited to postpone democracy will grab it with both hands. This comes from Mike in Lincoln, who says, Ian, looking at the guff spewing from Labour about delaying elections because of reorganisation, it's worthwhile pointing out that one of the largest areas in the country undergoing the said change has had elections, Lincolnshire. The real reason is they don't want reform winning control anywhere and proving that they can govern as well. Labour are running scared of democratic accountability, says Mike in Lincoln. And from Martin in Bristol, referenced the feminisation of young boys, as many people are seeing this story about somehow relearning or reteaching young boys almost the facts of life, so they don't run away with, you know, pornography is the norm. I mean, we've been through all this loads of times. It comes up in kids' sort of social and sex education already in these kind of areas. So this isn't entirely new in the sense of kids need to be, as life moves on, what you're taught today is different to what Victorian kids were taught. You know, girls do needlework, boys do woodwork. Women stay at home and look after the house, and men go out to work and do a graft, etc. You know, that's all that goes with that's a given that all of that is taught. I listen to the way my 11-year-old speaks, nearly 12, and it's very, for want of a better phrase, you know, he speaks in the parlance of the day. Things like, you know, racism and sexism back in the 70s and 80s, you know, kids would have been telling jokes about that stuff. They don't tend to do that anymore. Although I have bought him a 1983 Linda Lusardi calendar for Christmas. Look it up, kids. Anyway, Martin says, reference to feminisation of young boys. Under the guise of out-teaching misogyny, wouldn't it be much better if ex-squaddies act as role models to young guys, teaching them self-discipline and respect to themselves and others, rather than some gender-ambiguous gender studies person with a nose ring and blue hair who starts each lesson with an affirmation of their pronouns? As you can guess, I'm an old white male dinosaur. I'm glad there are still some left, Martin. Great to hear from you. 0344 499 1000.
You know, it's no good saying, oh, we've got a wonderful multicultural society and diverse is our strength, when you've got one group attacking another. That's no good. We cannot have this. Our Jewish friends and colleagues must feel safe in this nation, and I back them 100%.
Well, we appreciate your support, and it just makes common sense, doesn't it, Mike?
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This one from Matt in Cornwall. There is no doubt we are now living in a Marxist state when a democratically elected government now use disillusioned electorates' votes to do as they please. It's a disgrace, and they need to be democratically ousted from power. Well, next year, when people talk about the May elections, you sort of think halfway through. That's 20 weeks away. It's 20 weeks away. And it's the only thing, because I hate January. January is a bit of a kind of dull, you know, that like nothing gets going properly. The weather doesn't know whether it's what it's doing, and it's just a really odd time, those first couple of weeks. The thing I'm looking forward to most in 2026, I kid you not, are the local elections. Is that quite sad? That the biggest thing on my horizon is a set of elections? Think about what's at stake in 2026. It's huge. This could be the greatest game-changing moment, no matter where you sit politically, of our times. Let's speak to Scott in Essex. What have you got for us, Scott? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It always amazes me how they can be so incompetent and choosing the worst options possible. They can only do this much damage if it's deliberate.
Seems that way.
Removing the right to vote is a complete breach of democracy. Can we please use this to get a general election and get these idiots out? They are destroying this country.
There's something, when you put together all of their their worst moments, and that's quite a big list, and considering they've only been in power for about, an hour in relative terms, it's quite an extraordinary achievement to have that many kind of stinkers on your list. You do wonder, but I think they're gonna hang on, Scott, aren't they, till 2029? So we literally have another three and a bit years.
They've got this determination. They are privileged to lead, and we should just do as we're told. Yeah. We have the freedom of speech only to say what they want, and a freedom of choice only to confirm their ideals. We don't have the right to be independent. We don't have the right to actually think for ourselves. And God forbid we try and tell our children that in this day and age, women, yes, they are not physically as strong as men. It's biological fact. In the olden days, we had chivalry. We would open doors for women. We would look out for women. And if anyone put their hand up in society and went, I'm having a bit of trouble, could someone help? People wouldn't walk past trying to shield their gaze, going, not getting involved because of political correctness in case I say the wrong word and cause someone to have a meltdown.
Or I might get sued, if I damage your shoes or something while I'm pulling you out of a puddle. I get it. There's a grim old list out there, Scott. Thank you very much indeed for starting us off. I want to get a word from Matthew in Cheshire on this as well. What have you got, Matthew? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ian. Nice to speak to you again.
You too.
It's just if these Labour councils postpone their votes, then they're in big trouble, especially if the Tories don't do it. And if it's like Sebastian said there, if it's such a good thing that they're going to standardise all these local governments and have mayors and save money, why haven't they said that from day one? Why did they leave it till the last minute before the school bell rang yesterday? And they all went on their little merry leave over to Czechoslovakia to go work in some Labour camp, because it just stinks to high heaven. The only people who are going to win from this is Farage. I think
absolutely,
the Tories,
absolutely.
If the Tories take the moral high ground, say up like they said this morning, which they have been saying, that we're going to let the vote go ahead. They might lose, but they've got the moral high ground, and I think they'll get more respect for that than what Labour will do. Because I just think Labour, in a big world, I don't think they realise how much they're in. They're like a rat caught in a corner with a load of dogs barking around, it just scrabbling to do anything.
We are genuinely living in. I mean, this will go down in history. In years to come, we'll be telling kids and grandkids about this horrible period that we went through, where everything sort of went wrong. There was no sense of a direction. There was no collective idea of we're singing from a similar hymn sheet. There was no real belief that the economy is about to turn a massive corner and we're going to start inventing things. And we're just not in that place. I've never experience. I know things change, and I'm sure it's not lost on you either, Matthew, but every year you get a little bit older, you get more jaded perhaps on things, but I'm not expecting much from my government, but I do want them to set the basic templates for a good reality, law and order, and an economy that's going to grow and give thriving opportunities to entrepreneurs and businesses to be able to expand. I don't think that to me is the very basics you can ask for a government, and we've got the very antitheses of that. Matthew, I've got to run. The news is upon us. Thank you. David in Essex says, you need to see the reason for this reorganisation of the boundaries and district councils and county councils merging and the like. It's to bring organisations at local government in line with the EU model. I've heard people say this as well. Thoughts on that? Our lines are open, 0344 499 1000. Let's get the latest news headlines. The time, 2 o'clock.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
And welcome back. Yes, the Afternoon Empire. We're alive and well. It's our last Friday show of the year. What are we discussing here? Shed loads, kids. Tourism reform say that Labour are running scared. This is after ministers have invited, deep breaths here, 63 local councils to postpone next May's elections. Now, if this happened, this would potentially deny 10 million voters a say. Now, the logistical reasons are apparently that, well, there's going to be a reorganisation anyway. So after those elections, give it 2 years and those councillors will no longer exist. So what's the point? The point, Mr. Starmer, is democracy. It's as simple as that. Are Labour trying to control the democratic process? 0344 499 1000. Meantime, over at Tory HQ, Kemi Badenoch has jumped in on the idea of introducing misogyny classes in school. She's called the sexism classes a distraction and urges Labour to target cultures that disrespect women instead. She's absolutely bang on that one. We'll have more on that. And the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, has blocked EHRC guidance on enforcing women-only spaces as trans-exclusive, stalling publication for months, despite the Supreme Court affirming sex means biological sex under the Equality Act. All pretty simple stuff. Are Labour rowing back again? It's not really in their hearts, this stuff, is it? We'll have more on that as well. Everything you need to know, all the breaking news right here on Talk 0344 499 1000. John in Wallington says, the cancelling of elections is an outright attack on democracy. We must not let them get away with it. Reg says, couldn't help but notice the facial recognition cameras are out in Knightsbridge Station today. Wow. They're out there. Apparently they're in Brixton this week, which is the neck of the woods that our Finn, the producer, sort of lives around. I don't want to identify specifically where it is, but it's number 63, opposite that takeaway. You know the one. Yeah. 3rd floor. That's where he is. But everyone knows that anyway. Yeah, the facial recognition is more than just trialling it now. It seems like they're up and running big time. This one comes in from Jim, who says, is it possible he could cancel, this is Starmer, or delay the general election? Guess with a majority, that majority, you can do anything. I don't think he can. No, he can't. But he can go the full 5 years. They made 5-year terms mandatory under the coalition, of course, which meant that 2010 to 2015 was a set in stone. We knew when there was going to be the next election. So they can go 4 years, 4.5, 5 years. It just depends on events and what's going on at the time. Will Labour last that long? Probably. Will Starmer last that long, however? Maybe not. Let's move then to this story. As I mentioned a second ago, Kemi Badenoch jumping in on that idea of introducing misogyny classes in school. This came out yesterday, this one. The Tory leader has called the sexism classes a bit of a distraction. She's actually urging Labour to concentrate more on cultures that disrespect women instead, arguing that's a far more important issue to be dealing with. Let's speak with Maria Boutel, Pink Lady and spokeswoman for Restore Britain. Maria, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Ian. Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure. I was really uncomfortable when I heard this yesterday about, we've got to sort of rewire little boys' brains to the way that the government want you to think. Kids already, as I'm sure you know, they're aware of the, the dangers and the perils of extreme pornography. That is already covered in school these days. They're a different mindset to, even kids a decade ago. So we've already got a lot of, fairly sensible stuff up and running for kids. I don't think we need a government mandate that's going to rewire the minds of children so that they no longer become, what are we trying to do? Sort of homogenise the genders and the sexes here?
I think they're already, so to me, it's just a public exercise to say we're doing something about a massive issue.
Yep.
Because obviously crimes in sexual assault and general misogyny are seen to be rising. For me, Kemi's calling out that they need to focus on other cultures while ignoring the fact that it was her government that actually brought in these other cultures, and not daring to say that there is a very interesting looking graph that goes up and up and up about sexual assaults and things as immigration has increased. So I agree with what she said. There does need to be a switch of the focus. But again, Labour is just trying to prove they're doing something about the symptoms rather than the cause.
Yeah.
It's ultimately not good enough. And then the whole, what's more misogynistic than a man putting on a skirt, or a boy putting on a skirt and some lipstick and saying, I belong in a girl's toilet and I don't care if girls feel unsafe.
Yeah, they don't seem to see that. I mean, to me, that's pretty obvious stuff, isn't it? And it's interesting, about a year ago, my little boy, who was 10 then, said to me, am I right in saying he said, there are only two genders, aren't there? And the way he asked the question sort of suggested, Maria, that someone had told him otherwise. And I found myself, as a parent, thinking about what answer I'm meant to give. And I thought, oh, blimey, I don't... And I thought, no, sod this. I said, yes, there are two genders.
Self-censor. I think a lot of people have self-censored, and it's that lack of being able to say, no, this is the black and white truth.
Yeah.
That we've had taken out because of this nanny state that watches what we say online and is even thought policing and arresting people who are praying outside certain areas now. You feel like you have to be careful about everything you say. So yeah, my son's 13 and he's had similar lessons. He's had lessons about abortion, and his teachers pretty much said that, oh, it's a contraceptive means. Wow. And I'm, as a more of a religious person, I think abstinence is actually the best contraception until you're married and ready to have children. So for me, you have to know your stance and teach your children yourself, because ultimately young boys, especially like my son is 13 now, and the Netflix series that Kia wanted them to share in schools about almost making them out to be the bad guys before they've even had a chance to develop.
The adolescence one, you mean?
Yeah, the adolescence one. It's just demonising young boys is got to stop.
Yeah. Which, you know, if somebody did want to teach, I mean, I had sort of mixed views about that programme, and I didn't actually think it was centred very much on that specific point. I just think it was more to me about a family falling apart after a kid had committed a terrible crime. That's how I watched it. The other stuff, it seemed that, you're right, education and teachers sort of jumped on it because it's oh yes, I had a thing, you know, it's not a flipping documentary, for God's sake, it's a piece of drama, and I think we should view it at that. And you do, you know, to go back to what your kids are being taught, it's a minefield really, because when I said to my boy, you know, oh, there's two genders, I thought, I was almost waiting for a phone call.
Police gonna knock on your door.
Yes, like I thought, am I going to get a phone call saying, look, you know, we've heard you've been teaching your child there's only two genders, and everybody knows there's actually 157, and the fact that you've told him otherwise, we would like you to maybe just attend the police station for a chat. You don't have to come, but we'll arrest you if you don't. You know, it didn't quite go that far, but the sort of thoughts of a rebuke were there. I was expecting something.
Yeah, and I'd ask you, why do you think you were expecting something? Because I've felt the same pressures. Like, should I self-censor? I think a lot of us are getting fed up now and are just saying things and think, so be it. If I'm arrested, the more examples I've got my free speech union.
Yeah, indeed.
And hopefully I can ring them if I'm ever needing them. But I've decided I'm going to say what I think.
And there is, when it comes to sort of politicians and, you know, talking about we're going to reprogram boys to be, you know, less misogynistic, which kind of, I think that what they're really doing is that boys to be less masculine. I think that suits them down to the ground. But the thing they forget in all of this, there is this curious thing called parents, Maria.
Yeah.
You know,
well, it's the characteristics of your children. A lot of children end up like their parents in one way or another.
Yeah.
And actually empowering parents to feel like they can speak the truth to their child without being arrested, or to explore subjects with their child, or to teach them by leading a family unit, and dads in the home's a big one.
Yeah.
So going back to even my abstinence point, if you teach families, you know, not to have children until the kind of the committed relationship stage, say marriage, you're fostering a family environment, ideally, if it doesn't break down, where your child has the example of a good dad and a good mum that are doing their best and setting the example.
Spot on. And I thought Kemi Badenoch's point about looking at cultures that disrespect women, I mean, you're right, her party are not in the best position to be preaching on this, but putting that point aside, I think that's maybe a fairly good start. If you want to talk about what is right and wrong in terms of gender difference, then why not start there?
Yeah, well, I worry about, so different cultures, so there's female genital mutilation, there is how they are told to cover up. In some instances they may choose that, but it's this kind of trying to make women disappear from society is being driven by more than one culture and more than one ideology in this country now, because we are a melting pot of lots of different diverse things and people, and ultimately that diversity to me is something that weakens us, not strengthens us. And this is just one example of it, where women in society are being told to be empowered and strong, but also you can't have safe spaces. You can't say that that man is not a woman. You can't actually say anything against a different culture that may think women are less than in their own holy book. You can't call that out. Is also silencing women at the same time as saying you should be empowered.
Sure.
So it's just a mess of contradictions.
Listen, Maria, it's been lovely to have you on with us. Thank you for your time. Have a cracking Christmas. Maria Botel, who's a pink lady and spokeswoman for Restore Britain. Thank you to her. Over to you on this one, 0344 499 1000. I mean, the basic realities of... And it's a strange world we're in, isn't it? Because this is not an argument about equality. I don't know... I'm sure there are a few stragglers at the back. I don't know anybody who doesn't believe in equality, that, you know, you're kind of equal, men and women. Different is one thing. You know, there are... A young boy is going to be... a straight young boy is going to be attracted to a young girl, right? At some point he might ask her out, as the phrase goes. He's going to be aware of what he finds attractive. He's going to look around. And he's not going to ogle. He's certainly not going to touch anyone. But... the reality is there is that natural discovery as a young teenage boy where you begin to realise that there is something about a girl, someone of the opposite sex, that I find intrinsically attractive. And there are attributes about that girl that I particularly like. And another boy sitting on the next desk will have similar views, might have a slightly different idea of what he finds attractive. You know, and vice versa. So girls will be looking at boys in a similar way. You know, is it the kid who plays a lot of sport, to be stereotypical, who does better in terms of girls eyeing him up? And I would say, do you know what? That's never gone away, has it really? That has never, ever gone away. That's always been kind of the case. I mean, fortunately, the kid at our school, in secondary school, who was best at sport, he was one ugly son of a gun, I can't tell you. I mean, this bit of kit was a right old mess. So he was thankfully removed from the gene pool in my head. So he might have scored a lot of goals and hit a lot of runs and, you know, could play rugby and, you know, basketball and golf and God knows, we're probably indoor hang gliding. He was probably good at that as well. So he didn't have the... he was removed from the competition pool, which was rather delightful, frankly. But you take the point. So that some of those stereotypes are never going to go away. People might outwardly pretend they have, but they haven't. Let's speak to Georgina down in London on this very point. What a curious world, Georgina, we are living in.
Well, I'd like to say Happy Christmas to you, first of all.
And to you too.
Wonderful to talk to you. I'd like to give Jess Phillips and the rest of the Labour Party a bit of advice, and they need to concentrate on the real and present danger of misogyny that's sailing over the channel on a daily basis instead of deviating the blame and gaslighting it towards our sons and grandsons. How dare they vilify our children even more than they are already in? As it is, our little boys are given less opportunities in life now regarding employment. For goodness sake, employers are allowed to stipulate that no white males need apply if they so desire. For example, the peace recruitment, where they said that no white males need apply. This is blatant racism, if ever I heard it. Our young men are already made to feel as if they're not wanted, not needed. In fact, they're made to feel as if they're as necessary as a fifth wheel in our society. And it must stop. And we as parents and grandparents must demand that this vilification of our little boys must cease and desist within our Labour government, as it's now as clear as the nose on your face what they're doing. They're trying to demasculate our young boys. They're trying to make them weak. They're trying their darndest to break their spirit. But it would be our little boys of the future now that would be called upon to defend this country if ever unrest occurred. And they seem to overlook this, as they seem to overlook every other important issue regarding the safety of our children. Keir Starmer did exactly the same trick, Ian, as regards to the film Adolescence, having the audacity to compare our boys to the young boy in that film. Another perfect example of gaslighting and deviation of blame by the Labour government. And we cannot and will not tolerate this hate speech towards our children anymore, Ian.
I like it. Georgina, you've been fabulous as ever. You have a wonderful Christmas. Thank you, Georgina, down in London. Don in Chelmsford says, I realise that Orwellian is overused, but Starmer really is well into 1984 territory. We'll soon see his face on our TV screens. Imagine that when you walk past, you know, I was just thinking, you know, obviously we have billboards now that are visual all over the place, so it'll be that. The first time I saw that was, I think it was, what was the station? Might have been Charing Cross Station. We're in the corner. There was a massive screen and it was showing, I think at the time, Sky News. But it doesn't really matter which news it was. The fact that it was showing news on a big screen in a public place hit me in the solar plexus like a flipping missile. It was like, wow, whoa, that just looks... So what else is what's going to be on there next? The face of a Prime Minister? That woman that reads the North Korean news? She's had a long career, hasn't she? Bloody hell, she's been there for decades. Very good as well. I'd have her doing question time over here when Fiona quits. Those kind of things. You think of those Orwellian, yeah, the face on the screen. The Big Brother, 0344 499 1000. More calls from you on the way. This is Talk.
You know, it's no good saying, oh, we've got a wonderful multicultural society and diverse is our strength, when you've got one group attacking another. That's no good. We cannot have this. Our Jewish friends and colleagues must feel safe in this nation, and I back them 100%.
Well, we appreciate your support, and it just makes common sense, doesn't it, Mike?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
From Lucy, who says anyone who objects to these monstrous actions of this government should petition the King. He won't comment, but he will hear. The state really has become the enemy of the people. The only thing you could sort of argue and I wouldn't say this defensively, because I could not be more opposed and disturbed by it, but the only thing you could argue is that this is Labour being Labour. OK, this is exactly what these people feel they were born to do. They are perfectly relaxed about all the elements that as I see it, look, they won a landslide. I know the share of the vote was a bit iffy, but you take the point. The way I see it is that this is precisely what they're not manufacturing these bizarre decisions based on all sorts of things, whether it's about the EU, whether it's about immigration, whatever it is. This is in their bone marrow. This is deeply embedded in the DNA of Labour politicians, and particularly this lot. This lot are mostly old school, and secretly many of them will be very Corbynite in their approach. And Starmer's done this kind of weird, like, I'll try and be a bit like Tony Blair and hybrid the whole thing. And I think he's largely giving up on that when he's realised that what's the point in chasing what's the point in Labour pretending they have a more robust policy on immigration than reform? I mean, what a stupid... So I sense they've kind of given up on this stuff. They're now thinking the biggest threat comes from the left, the Corbynites and the Green Party. So let's go down... And they're much happier in their skin. They're much happier introducing policies and ideas that kind of sit in that particular space on the political spectrum. That suits them just fine. Look, people voted for them. You voted, if you did, you voted for a Labour Party. And what you've got at the moment is a Labour Party. They are expansionists when it comes to the state. They are statists when it comes to diktats. The state is bigger than the individual. It's a far better mechanism of governing than individuals. That is in their belief system. So, yeah, what people have got is literally what they voted for. Let's get a voice note on this very issue from John.
When I last looked, I could have sworn it was England or the UK, not North Korea. These people, all they're doing is, with the elections, is stopping, so the Labour councillors can earn more money.
More money. I think money would have been the last word. I mean, that could be a competition in itself. Guess the missing word from the voice note. But there it is. Thank you, John, for that. Let's go to Anne in Sussex. What have you got for us, Anne? Good afternoon to you.
Oh, good afternoon, Ian. In a way, you've said it all. This is in their DNA. And I think what they're doing is they are rushing through all these dangerous policies, dangerous for us, the indigenous population, as soon as they can. And that's their reason for being. And I always come back, and I've probably done it with you as well, to the 45 goals of communism. Mm-hmm. The reason they want to be taking control of the councils, and you can see what they've done in London, is it is real control, and having unity authorities, it becomes a career role for councillors, not the kind of role that we had, and I was one for 40 years, where you are giving to society and you're working closely with people, because often you don't know who your councillors are. So that's one side, and it's gone away from the cabinet to the cabinet system from committee. But the other side is the boys. Let's get the boys, because once we've got the boys away from their parents, because obviously parents aren't doing the job, so the government is going to teach them how to treat women. I'm sorry if I'm having hysterics, but the government isn't. It's about the role in communism is to separate children from their parents, because parents, like grandparents, are a bad influence. So once you use this excuse, oh, well, the boys, I mean, it's all been said, our boys are so vulnerable. I taught under fives for 20 years. Our little boys, they need to be at home with mum, they need nurturing. You've got a son. Did you find your son needed a lot of tenderness as a little boy? And when you get them away from the home and from mum and those influences, they think they've got to rely on themselves. And then when they're falling apart, suicide can be the extreme, a good way out. But actually, we join a gang to belong. We're failing, boys, if we don't understand their needs.
Well, we're also reflecting this, which I find a rather bizarre and troubling notion, that the state knows better than the parent. And that's long been a belief of the Labour government.
They do, because we believe, some of us, and some of us believe in marriage. We believe in children. We believe in the faith of our country. Even if we don't go to church, we've had that grounding. We have the same values. They don't believe that. They are changing our country. The way it's going, you can see that the Muslims are being controlled. The women will be hidden away and covered up, and the men, well, they will have to do. Sadly, what I've seen a lot of Muslim men do, they are controlled by the imam. They're not free. They control their family.
Are we getting carried away with ourselves to think we're going to become a Muslim country, though, Anne?
Well, it's the population. You know that we can't afford to have the children we need. We were told not to have too many children. So it isn't that Muslims are unkind. I've helped the Muslims to get a mosque and burial ground here. I work with good Muslims in the same way they're good people in all countries and all denominations. Yeah. It isn't that, but it's those extremists. The imams come from backward countries usually, and they're the ones in control. And I've seen how the Muslim men have to send money back to Pakistan and other countries, not because they're wealthy, but it's because that's what they're forced to do by their religion.
And on that point, Anne, powerful stuff from Anne in Sussex, and thank you for your comments as well, Anne. Have a lovely Christmas, and thank you for your call. This one comes in from Paul, who says, Starmer has got that Orwellian face expressionless thing. I can imagine it displayed on a big screen in every town. He kind of has, hasn't he, really? There's not a lot going on there. And it's only when you see other politicians and, again, you're always forced to draw on Donald Trump. And Trump might not be your cup of tea. I don't think Trump's a particularly decent man. His Rob Reiner stuff was, frankly outrageous. And, so many Republicans and right-wingers felt that they lost something for Trump that day. Look it up if you don't know what I'm talking about. But what I do love is the fire in his belly, and that's unparalleled. And I long for the day when we will see a politician of whatever colour in this country who's able to talk like that. We were talking about union leaders, weren't we, on Wednesday? I think it was a sort of Arthur Scargill. Who was that other fellow? Red Rob, wasn't it? The other fellow that came up. Those guys, even if you didn't, they're kind of fascinating, mesmeric characters. Even if you don't believe a word of what they say, they believe it, and they're arguing their cause, and they're arguing it in a very powerful way. And that's what Trump does. Trump might be all over the place. Well, it's a beautiful thing. It's a really beautiful thing. My beautiful what? All of that. He might be full of, it's a bit weird. But there's some fire there. When something bad happens, he responds with both barrels. And we just get a bloke stand outside Number 10 with a press release and read it out. I'm fed up with that. 0344 499 1000. More from you on the way. Don't disappear. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk, just gone 3:30. No, 2:30. Blimey, 2:30. I don't know where my head is. Is that a Christmassy thing? Maybe it is. The Education Secretary, Bridget Filson, has blocked trans rules put in place to protect single-sex women's spaces. This is the Education Minister, by the way. If she's doing this with adults, I mean, God knows what she's going to allow in schools. You do kind of wonder when you read these stories. Let's speak with Heather Binning, who's Executive Director at the Women's Rights Network. Heather, good afternoon to you. This was genuinely a story that when I read, I thought there was a misprint. I thought, you know, when you read something, you think, well, I've read this. Surely they've got this the wrong way round. This is a senior government minister. We've had the Supreme Court ruling. It's all set out. We were all sensible now. We went through a stage where there was a collective madness, and now we're getting through the wheat and the chaff, and we're coming out the other side. And then a senior government minister goes and says this.
It's quite staggering, isn't it? Bridget Phillipson, not only Minister of State for Education, but also Minister of State for Women and Equalities, which she's doing a very, very bad job. Just yesterday, I was on talk with your colleague Alex Phillips talking about Labour's announcements about how they were going to eradicate misogyny. Yeah. And then we learned that Bridget has been working to stop the rights of women to protect themselves when they are at their most vulnerable. I mean, this is just so hypocritical. It's absolutely absurd. And the examples that she had cited are trivial and insulting. I mean, I talked to a lot of women last night and this morning, are absolutely raging to find that this is happening. It seems, I don't know if she's being bullied, but there's talk of a group of MPs that are anti-women. I'd rather use those terms rather than pro-trans. This is anti-women. And it seems that but 50 MPs, so 12% of Labour representatives that she is cowering to. Yeah, and it really is that. It's worth just having a look at some of those examples that you referred to, Heather, that she gave as to why, you know, single-sex space is essentially, she's saying it's unworkable. She cited, I mean, this is the thinking here is so juvenile, it's off the scale. She suggested infant sons who are in women's changing rooms. I mean, I don't know why that would even be relevant. A woman taking her kids into a changing room has never been a problem. It's never been an issue. Happens all the time. And pregnant women who might want to use the men's loos. I assume, you know, if you're pregnant, you might, you know, need a pee a little more urgently than a non-pregnant person. So you dive straight through for the first loo, regardless of who it is. I've never seen this happen in my entire life, by the way, but I'm sure if it did, nobody would, you know, we'd all understand. I mean, is this the best they've got? Is this the best they got? I mean, I have seen it happen. You know, I know of it. And we make accommodations. In life, we make accommodations. Of course we do. If I can give your viewers, you can tell I'm a little bit angry about this, give your viewers some insight. So we drive on the left. The law is that we drive on the left. And we all obey that. And there aren't police out there making sure that we're driving on the left. Occasionally, there's an accident or roadworks, which mean we have to cross that white line and drive on the right. Now, we're not breaking the law. Yeah. And we do that. It's accommodation to get round a particular issue. And that's what should happen. There is no reason to write this into some law and further confuse service providers that need this guidance. The guidance which has been sitting on her desk for so long. It took a long time after the Supreme Court judgment. The judgment was detailed. It is the law. It was the law before April. It is the law now. Nothing has changed. If there are elements out there that do not like the law, then there are other ways, there are correct ways of going about this, not by subverting the law as it actually is. You know, we've been fighting this for such a long time. The example about the boy in the women's being taken in by his mother to the changing room.
Yeah.
I am very pleased to see that Virgin Active have a sign now. I don't know in all its centres, so everybody wants to go out and look. But certain now sent a photograph of their sign which says boy-free zone, with details that no boy over the age of 8 will be allowed, you know, should be in those changing rooms. So there are accommodations made. Yeah. So long as women know, if there's a male cleaner in a toilet, there's a sign put up to say there's a male cleaner in this toilet. So we other women can make the decision about whether they're going to go in and use those facilities or not.
And it's a fair point. We will watch this one with interest and we won't take our eye off this particular ball. Heather, thank you for being with us. Heather Binning, Executive Director at the Women's Rights Network. It's interesting. I've always noticed when I speak to my other half about using a gym, in the women's change, if there's a cleaner in there, it's nearly always a woman in the women's changing room. But it's not nearly always a man. Have you ever noticed that, Finn? Sometimes you get women cleaners in the... swimming pools. In the men's changing room, there's a woman walking around, and all right, she's there to clean. She's not on pecker detail. That's not what she's there to do. I get it, and I'm not that flustered by it, but I do find it interesting that given how accurate establishments and corporations are meant to be about being aware of everyone's sensitivities, that one kind of gets a bit of a free pass. That a woman just comes walking in with a big old mop and, perhaps more worryingly, a pair of rubber gloves as you're drying your feet. This is Herbie in Harrow. Herbie, what are you thinking? Good afternoon.
What am I thinking, Ian? Where's democracy gone? Out the window?
Yeah, where has it gone?
You know, unbelievable. How can a man deny people the right to choose who they want to run their borough or their council? Yeah. Unbelievable. It's completely out of order, completely wrong. The man has lost the plot. He doesn't know what to do, how to keep himself in power. That's all it's all about. Unbelievable, Ian. This is democracy now completely gone. We don't have democracy anymore. We have a dictatorship now.
Do you? Their argument, of course, as you will be aware, Herbie, is that, well, hang on, look, these are areas that are going to be combined in about 18 months, 2 years. What's the point in having elections if you're then going to say to half of those councils, oh, by the way, you haven't got a job anymore. I know you were elected because we've got to combine these areas to make them a different kind of jurisdiction. That's their argument.
But why? Why are we changing all these boroughs and all these councils now all of a sudden? Is it to save money or to cost more money, or what's it going to do?
Well, apparently to make things more democratic.
Oh, don't make me laugh, for God's sake, give me a jaw ache. You know, come on, Ed, it's not democratic. They are doing it to suit themselves. They're doing it to keep themselves in power. Yeah. You know, if they know they've got the masses behind them, they're going to get and hopefully win these votes because there'd be less seats for them to contend with. Amazing, isn't it?
It is amazing, and of course it just sits as another aspect of this particular government's very bizarre way of governing. Although, you know, I did say earlier it wasn't a defence that I'm happy to make for them, but I suppose you could say, well, it's a Labour government, so this is what people voted for.
Yeah, but not the majority voted for. It's, you know.
No, but that will always be the case, isn't it? If Reform win at the next election, the majority of people wouldn't have voted for them, but just the majority of those that voted would have voted for them.
Well, yeah, but at least we know that the people voted for what they want to have control in order to run their country or borough yet again. At the moment, we are being denied that. We are being denied the choice. We're keeping these people in power that the electorate don't particularly might want to be left in power.
Yeah.
That's the answer to it all. That's the problem.
And that's where we're at. Herbie, thank you very much indeed. Herbie in Harrow. This comes in from Steve in Gosport. Sexism is not a subject, but a state of mind. You can't teach it in school. Attitudes will already be learned from home life. Yeah, and also, you know, you can throw in a bit of popular culture as well of what kids are watching. And if kids are watching some pretty ropey stuff on social media, and many are, then that may well change some of their appetites in terms of the kind of views they have. You know, if you've got a 10-year-old who watches Andrew Tate on loop, then I'd imagine that's probably going to be a bit of an iffy kid. But there, again, this thing called parents, the last time I looked, it was literally their job to attend to this, watch it, monitor it, and ensure that your kid is getting the correct, decent, respectable, all the obvious stuff, forms of education. This will be Paul in Newport on this issue of sexism classes. Paul, what have you got for us?
How are you doing, Ian? Good to speak again.
You too.
I've called about, so obviously the Kemi Badenoch thing, okay? And
yeah.
So she sort of said no focus on ethnicity, all this sort of stuff. And so it's been pretty much shot down in flames from what we can all see. I just want you to think about the mixed messaging that's come in here, okay? And I don't want to be some sort of conspiracy theorist, but read between the bits, right? So when it comes to prostate testing, remember a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah.
There's the King, there's Cliff Richard, there's Sir Chris Hoy, all saying test all men from the age of 55 or whatever it was, yeah? And it was decided, no, only test men of a particular ethnic group or groups, right? Very positive thing. So the rest of us don't get it, but men of a particular ethnic groups, they get the free test.
Say that again, Paul.
Right. So prostate cancer in men is the biggest cancer. It thinks it's the biggest killer.
Yes.
Yeah? And just about 2 or 3 weeks ago, there's the King. There's
they all
saying
get tested.
All men should be tested from the age of 55. I think it was.
Yeah.
So all men from the age of 55 should be tested for prostate cancer. And the government decided, no, we're not going to do that. We're only going to test men of particular ethnic groups because they're seen to be a higher risk, right? And that's how it is.
I don't even think they went that far. I don't even think the compulsory testing thing, I think, just was written off as not viable.
No, I think you're wrong there. It's particular.
There are, yes, if you're a black male is more likely to get prostate cancer than a white male.
And so they get a free test, okay?
Well, I don't think they did. That's what I'm saying. I think there was arguments that they should, because they are more likely to get prostate cancer. But I've got a feeling it wasn't accepted by the government. But maybe I stand to be corrected.
Yeah, but let's put that. Let's just park that one. So that would be a good thing for particular ethnic groups.
Yeah.
When it comes to Kemi saying, hang on, maybe we should look at ethnic groups that do a bad thing, i.e. they're not very nice to women and children, we won't do that. So you'll placate them on one way, but you won't upset them on the other way. So you could almost argue that in some instances they're pandering, or at the very least trying to not upset particular ethnic groups.
Yeah.
I might be stretching it a bit far, but where's the commonality? If you're going to say, okay, then they get this, but we won't do that. We'll do this to appease them, but we won't do this to upset them. I don't really get that.
Right. So you're saying there's some contradiction in the way that we
100%.
Sensitivities. Do you think it is? Is that what you're saying here?
Well, I think it goes back to the woke thing, doesn't it? We just don't. We're trying to get rid of woke,
Yeah.
But it seems to be that there are huge parts of the government blob, as it's called, that can't quite hop out of that mindset. Well, one other thing is, am I allowed to say one other thing before?
Yeah, go for it.
We've spoken before about my business rates, and my business rates. Remember, they went from 23,000 to 45,000.
Yeah.
Right? I've just had the rates from April 2026. £66,000.
Man alive! What are you supposed to do with that?
I don't know. I really.
Well, I know what you're supposed to do with it. Pay it and say nothing. But how do you physically do that?
Well, I'm trying to work it out with a pencil, as the old joke goes. I don't know.
Unbelievable. So just remind us, last year's was what?
So from 2023, it was 23,000.
Yep.
For 24-25, it was 45,000. For 26 and onward, it's 66,000.
These are your local business rates.
Yeah.
How has anybody come up with that number? Wouldn't somebody in the room go, hang on a second, you're talking about small businesses here. How would somebody just conjure up? I mean, collectively, between 2020, between the first rate and the rate now, you've added in a couple of years 40-odd grand
Yeah. Bear in mind, to make rates have to come out of my profits.
Of course they do.
For me to profit an extra £40,000, I'd have to turn over an extra £220,000.
Yeah, that's just insane, right?
I don't know how to do it.
That is insane.
No idea.
Well, listen, Paul, it sounds like a lousy comment from me, but I mean, I wish you luck in able to sort of circumnavigate this. It's always been a bit of an easy target, I think, for local authorities and the like. Business rates. Paul, thank you. Paul in Newport on that. 0344 499 1000. Back with more from you coming next, right here on Talk.
You know, it's no good saying, oh, we've got a wonderful multicultural society and diverse is our strength, when you've got one group attacking another. That's no good. We cannot have this. Our Jewish friends and colleagues must feel safe in this nation, and I back them 100%.
Well, we appreciate your support, and it just makes common sense, doesn't it, Mike?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is indeed Talk. You caught us unawares there. We are back. Lots going on here. 0344 499 1000. Back to your calls in a couple of moments' time. Voice of Doom on its way in a second as well. Martin in Nottinghamshire. So we've entered the first stages of our state becoming a communist state. In 69 years of my life, I've never seen what this government is doing. Do you know, this is really bizarre. There is a similar accusation that is levelled at Donald Trump, that he is doing, in his no-nonsense approach, he runs the risk of a fairly authoritarian figure. You know, I'm not going to allow this, I'm not going to allow that, that's nonsense, I don't want to do this. You know, when there are systems in place and democratic systems in place that address all this. If you want to change something in America, there's ways of doing it. And his point is, we're out of time, we're out of patience. And even if you agree with him, that it all sounds fine. But that's not really the point, is it? The point is that is America being run almost on the same lines as a Chinese model, not in the obvious stuff, but China, of course, is this curious communist regime with a capitalist veneer. And they do so unapologetically. It doesn't really sit. You know, the president of China is still the chairman, is the official title he has. See Mao for details. And it's often said that that's how Trump is running his administration, that it's gone, really hard on government decisions. We won't allow states to think about this. This is government decisions. Executive orders being used in ways that they were never, ever imagined. They can be challenged, of course. Do you read America like that? Is that how it seems to you? Certainly that subject does come up. In this country, to come back to where it really matters for us, and the one that Martin raises, yeah, it is that. I think maybe there was more of it under Blair and Brown than we realised, because we were probably a little bit seduced by this idea that Blair was sort of, this new kid on the block who was going to make things palatable, calling it New Labour. It won't any longer be the old kind of Labour Party, but actually there's quite a lot of evidence. I think Peter Hitchens writes on this, that if you dig, not so deeply, but just have a little dig, you'll see actually there's quite a lot of old Labour still there. Right, Voice of Doom before we go any further. I think it's day 4 possibly of the Voice of Doom. This is a mystery voice, of course. All you've got to do is guess who this is.
Going to be community relations.
And let's hear that again.
Going to be community relations.
87222 if you think you know who this is.
Going to be community relations.
If we get a right answer, we tell you after the news. If not, it rolls over to Monday. Well, Monday will be our last show of the year. We are doing breakfast for a few days, by the way. Next week, we're taking over breakfast. No, we're not. Look, if I scrap that, we're not taking over breakfast, all right? Otherwise, my mate Dan's going to make another video. We're not taking over breakfast. Jeremy Kyle is taking over breakfast, and Dan did make a video on that. We are standing in over the second week of Christmas, so a week on Monday. There you go. 0344 499 1000. Right, let's get some more calls in. Kevin is in Dorset on this election postponement story. Kevin, what have you got for us?
Well, hi Ian, nice to talk to you again. I just wonder how far Starmer is deliberately wanting to push the British public. It's fairly obvious. We all know the reason why he's doing this. And he's gently sort of saying, well, I'm just asking the councils. They don't have to, but then he's almost bending their arm behind their backs. But he's pushing, when I first heard this, it's like I'm just absolutely speechless and perplexed. And the anger you feel inside that you're being deprived of your right to vote.
Correct.
Which he's not allowed to do. And this basically takes us to the next step of maybe, and I'm guessing a figure here, 90% towards a dictatorship.
Yeah.
Are we becoming North Korea? Are we becoming China? Or are we becoming ruled by the Taliban? Just to put a spin on it. And I'm not even going to mention Germany from the Second World War because there's no need. But it's just ridiculous. Even I'm speechless at sometimes.
Yeah. I wonder, again, I keep coming back to this point that, people who are kind of die-hard, genuine... I mean, a lot of people voted for Labour because they didn't know who else to vote for, and they thought, well... I'm not going to vote for the Tories. I'll give this Starmer bloke a go. I don't know why, but people did. People who are genuine Labour supporters probably love all this stuff. That's the point, Kevin, isn't it?
Well, it is, unfortunately, and if they are the diehards, I've come across one or two of them. There's not many, and they can't even debate. They can't even win an argument. Not that you need to win it, but they just don't have any foundation. All they want to do is throw allegations at you, call you rude names, say you're a loony, but they have no basis or evidence to back up any of the stuff that's happening.
And
that's what tells you in life that someone is just not even worth the paper they're written on.
Absolutely spot on. Great call, Kevin. Thank you very much indeed for that. Message in from Matt, who says, if it's acceptable to say that all men are potential rapists and that we should all believe, and we should believe all women, two mantras that go generally unchallenged when spoken, that children are innocent and precious unless they're boys, who are inherently toxic. Isn't that misandric? Is it misandric or misanthropic? Yes. Misandric. Yeah, misandry is the... Yeah, anyway, got it. The word just jumped out as not being right, but it is right. Rather than balanced and honest. Surely we should have sex education classes for parents first. Everyone would feel involved, respected and properly treated, rather simply indoctrinating our little children. It's a good point from Matt. And Anne says, Sebastian Salick, the Labour councillor we had on earlier, has a novel approach to saving taxpayers' money for a Labour man. I haven't heard that before from them. Shame it means cancelling elections, though. I wonder what Labour would have thought if another party had done the same thing. They'd be shouting from the flipping rooftops. More from you on the way. 03444991000. We have the voice of doom, of course.
Going to be community relations.
Do you know who this is?
Going to be community relations.
87222 if you think you know. Let's get the news headlines. Time, 3 o'clock.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yeah, good afternoon. Welcome to the home of Common Sense. Loads to come in this last hour. We are talking about the Tories and Reform, who are accusing Labour of running scared. This is after ministers have invited 63 councils to postpone next May's local election. They've got logistical reasons why they think it might be the best thing to do. This is democracy. I don't care what else you've got planned. You call an election on the date that's in the diary. You don't change it or cancel it. This is not a good reason. It could deny over 10 million voters a say. That is not acceptable. Are Labour trying to control democracy? More comment from you. Meanwhile, at Tory HQ, Kemi Badenoch has jumped in on the idea of introducing misogyny classes in school. The Tory leader has called the sexism classes a distraction. She thinks that we should be targeting culture issues that disrespect women instead. We'll have more comment from you on that. And not unrelated, the Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson has blocked EHRC guidance on enforcing women-only spaces as trans-exclusive, stalling publication for months despite the Supreme Court ruling, which of course affirmed that sex means biological sex under the Equalities Act. More from you on that as well. Everything that you need to know. We'll bring you all the breaking news right here on Talk 0344 499 1000. And Andy in the Wirral says, how does Starmer have the authority to do this? It's wrong. What next? He won't request a general election? Well, he has, and I don't like using the phrase in fairness to Keir Starmer, he's invited local councils to postpone the election. He hasn't said they have to. He said you might want to think about it. Now, if you're one of the Labour-run councils, which account for about 26, Sebastian, the Labour councillor we spoke to in the first section, said it was 18. Well, 18 have a majority, but 26 are Labour-run. So I would imagine that any Labour council, regardless of majority, if you're running it, you will want to do what Keir Starmer has invited you to do, and that's cancel the election, because all the polls suggest you're going to get annihilated come next May. Would you not do that? I think you would do that. We will watch with interest and see how they respond. Now, let's move then to this story. A major benefit surge is expected to see 1 in 8 Britons on disability benefits by the end of this decade. Spoiler alert, that's around about 4 years away. 1 in 8 on disability benefits. We crunched the numbers on that, by the way. It's just over 15% of the adult population, mainly driven by increases in mental health and ADHD-related claims that are up a fifth year on year. Let's speak with Mitchell Palmer, economist at the Adam Smith Institute. Good afternoon to you, Mitchell.
Afternoon.
Nice to have you with us. I mean, these numbers are enormous, they're disturbing, they're troubling, but perhaps most profoundly, they're unsustainable.
Yes, certainly. I mean, the reality is that after COVID, during COVID, there was an increase in the number of disability benefit claimants, and we would have expected that to come down. But the reality is the government seems to have lost control, and their own forecasts show that they're not going to take control anytime soon. Our report we wrote recently on the Motability Scheme, which is a sort of offshoot of this problem, showed that this was basically because the courts have extended what it means to be disabled, and the government hasn't basically reversed those interpretations.
We're talking about 8.7 million Brits. I mean, as I mentioned, that is, of the adult population, that's over 15% of people who will be on a disability-linked benefit. Now, notwithstanding the fact that we all totally understand assisting people who are in need of a disability benefit, nobody is arguing that basic principle. We are forced to scratch our head and wonder what's happened to the criteria for describing somebody in this kind of way. If it's genuine, it's deeply troubling. If it's playing with words, it's deeply troubling. Whichever way you slice this one, we're in trouble.
Yes, I agree. And certainly we would expect some increase in the number of people that are genuinely disabled simply as the population gets older. And obviously we know that people tend to suffer with disability more as they get older. But that cannot explain the scale of this increase. And we also can compare it to other metrics we have of genuine disability. So for instance, when we look at NHS data on chronic illness and on, for instance, if we look specifically at physical disability, use of wheelchairs, use of amputee services, those sort of things, they haven't really increased very quickly at all. So we can't explain this with a simple increase in the amount of actual illness. It is clearly an increase in the amount of diagnosis and the willingness of the government to basically accept those diagnoses.
Well, it's mental health, isn't it? ADHD-related claims that are largely responsible for this, Mitchell. I mean, that seems to be what the figures are telling us. So what should we do then? Do we pursue the reason why this sort of underbelly of psychological malaise is taking over, if that's the way to describe it? What is going on?
Yeah, so, I mean, some of it may have to be an NHS side solution, you're treating more people.
Yep.
But some of it is going to have to be just being a bit more strict about what it actually means to be so disabled that you are not only not required to work at the moment, but not even subject to any work tests in the future in some of these cases. So clearly, we're just going to have to tighten up what we mean when we say that someone is so disabled as to not be expected to work. One other thing we could do is stop allowing people to stack their physical disabilities on top of their mental disabilities, which then can allow them to claim, for instance, the enhanced mobility component for conditions which clearly do not make it more difficult for them to move around. The reality is that this is an important system to maintain for the genuinely disabled. And if we don't keep the rules quite tight, one, we're going to run out of money, but two, I think ordinary working British people are going to stop trusting the system and stop, being willing to give so much of their money into it.
Indeed. And one wonders what options are therefore available to a government, whether it's this one or an incoming government. Are we literally going to have a minister stand up and say, I'm really sorry, but 58% of people who are claiming mental illness are not telling us the truth, or we don't believe you, or we don't believe it's sufficient enough, even though it's almost like the bad back thing. It's very hard to gauge, what or the level of somebody's issues. Will it be that, or will the government simply roll over and say, well, given that we can't disprove anything, we can't authenticate either, so we will just have to pay people out and find a way of paying for it?
I mean, it's really a question of political courage. The government did have a blueprint which they certainly considered, and I think most independent experts considered, would have put some of the lid back on disability benefit spending. That was, earlier this year. They were unable to get that through their backbenchers, but it clearly shows that there is a way to get these to get the spending under control. And if even a Labour government, if not Labour parliamentary members, can propose such a method, it's clearly not a sort of evil kind of right-wing conspiracy. There is clearly a problem here that right-meaning people of all political allegiances and of all levels of sort of progressive opinion can agree. And there are some ways, and the government's already shown some of those, to get that spending under control. What they now need to do is convince their backbenchers to vote for it.
And on that point, Mitchell, thank you very much indeed. Bravery, you're absolutely right. It's going to take someone quite brave. Mitchell Palmer, economist at the Adam Smith Institute. Thank you to him. Jim says, is it possible he could cancel or delay the general election? I may have referred to this one a little earlier, Keir Starmer. I don't think they can do that. They can only go to a certain time, like a full 5-year thing. There's a point they can't go over. Labour are likely to be there till 2029. Will Keir Starmer be there is perhaps the more pressing question. And come May and those local elections, and when people go, well, it's not going to make that much difference, it's only 67 councils and many of them will just revert to type anyway, it doesn't matter, won't make much of a difference. Well, it does if Keir Starmer's future depends on it, then I promise you every single vote matters. So if in those particular constituencies where he's invited councils to postpone the elections, that would be a huge victory for Keir Starmer. Now, he's never going to say, well, that's why I'm doing it, or that's why I think it's good. But the manifestation would be that any vote that doesn't get lost to another party, I'll take that, yeah. Well, it's only like 500,000 votes. If you add it all up, Labour, yeah, we need them. We don't want to lose them, put it that way. Let's go to Anthony in Torquay. On this issue of disability and benefits, what are your thoughts, Anthony? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ian. Great show as usual.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome, kiddo. Yeah, my thing is, I'm 62.
Mm-hmm.
October 2014, when I just started working at a care home as a head of housekeeping.
Yep.
Gave up my coach driving job so I could spend more time with my son because I was away all the time. And then I was off work the next week because we were going up to see my mum up north, me and my son. And I had too many sherbets, and I've never denied it. I ran to the toilet, fell down the stairs, and I broke my back.
Oh.
Yeah, but...
and what did that... what were the extent of the injuries?
Well, I was 4 weeks in Derriford, had an operation, came back, turned around to the lady who owned the care home, because it was a family home care home, and they didn't want me to go anywhere because I'd actually got all the workers to actually work in only it's a month. So they wanted me to come back, but they said for only an hour a day.
Mm-hmm.
This is 2 weeks after I came out of Hereford.
Wow.
But of course I couldn't do that, so I worked and worked and worked and worked. And then after 3 years, I had a 10-hour operation in Exeter. Because I'd gone back to work so early, I'd made it worse.
Of course.
And because they didn't put the cage in properly in Derriford, that made it worse as well. So they cut into me 3 ways, but then after that, I can't work anymore. And it's really annoying.
So you're literally incapacitated now. It's not, you're not able to, you can walk, but you can't.
I walk with a walking stick.
Right. So, to do the kind of job you need.
I'd love to go back to work, yeah.
No, I get it.
But I can't. And they only give me the lowest amount of benefit as well, even though I've worked all my life, which makes me really angry.
Sure.
You know, because I've paid into the system, I've done everything, but they won't give me a disability car, nothing like that. So...
what sort of condition do you have to have endured or be in order to have a livable benefit where you're not struggling and worrying whether you can turn the lights on?
I don't turn my heating on. I have my heating on for half an hour in the morning, and that's it, full stop.
Wow.
Because I can't afford it. And
I mean, that can't be right, can it? I mean, it's been chilly these last few weeks. You know, that can't be okay.
Yeah, I wear body warmers.
Yeah.
And insoles, if you know what I mean.
But you know, it doesn't stop your hands or your face feeling cold, does it?
No.
And knowing that you're in a chilly room, it's not a comfortable way to live.
No. But I manage. I have to manage.
Of course.
I have to.
No, I hear you.
My son took me out for our Christmas meal last night. He took me out. You know, he's a good lad. 21. Got a job at Brixham Harbour.
Nice.
Yeah. So he spoiled his dad last night.
Yeah.
Which was very nice of him. So you know what I mean? But I get up every day and I know that after half an hour, I've got to turn the heating off because I can't afford to have it on any
And
longer.
are you in constant pain as well?
Yeah. I take 9 different tablets every day.
Yeah.
And I've got 2 different inhalers as well.
Is there anything down the line that can be done to right the wrong?
No. No. And when I actually thought, because I got talking to somebody and they said, well, that's 2 operations that have both gone wrong. And I said, yeah. But because I've left it so long, I can't do anything about it now.
Yeah.
And I always thought that once you sign that disclaimer, that's it, isn't it? You know, you can't then say, oh, right.
Well, I think to a degree. I mean, I hear so many different stories on this, Anthony, about what, you know, you can't sign you can't sign anything that allows a surgeon to kill you with impunity. And they go, well, you signed a bit of paper, so it's fine, you know. Yes, but you were using a shovel as a scalpel. That's not okay, you know, that kind of thing. Obviously, they're extreme examples, but I mean, look, I don't know what your options are in terms of whether you're able to talk to somebody on that, but if something has gone so terribly wrong, then you should be entitled to at least have some answers.
Yeah, this 10-hour operation, they're cutting me the top, middle, and the side.
Right.
But when they're cutting up the side, this is why I'm always out of breath. They moved my lung.
They did what to your lung? They punctured your lung?
They moved it to get to the break.
Right. And that altered your capacity to breathe properly?
Yeah.
So they damaged your lung while trying to do to attend to a different part of your body. I mean, I don't know what the legal rights and wrongs of that are, but I would talk to somebody. I mean, if it's...
I have, but they said because I've left it so long, there's nothing they can do now.
Well, I mean, there is such a thing as...
limitations, whatever it is.
Really? I mean, that seems extraordinary. That seems extraordinary. There may well be somebody listening to this who can offer different advice. It wouldn't be advice that I can advise you to take, but it's worth hearing that if somebody has it. Listen, Anthony, I hear everything you're saying, and then I guess when somebody pitches up and says, I've got a bit of ADHD, can I have some benefits, and you find out they're on something more than you are, you're probably thinking, well, hang on, how does that work?
Well, I'll give you an example, okay? I live near a co-op, and right there is a family. They've never worked, never done anything. They get full disability, right? They've got the car, everything. You look at them and you think, there's nothing wrong with you. But it's not just them, it's the wider family as well. They're all getting it as well. And I'm thinking, what's going on? What's going on? It's not right.
It isn't right, and this country is full. Yeah, it's full of those kind of bizarre. I don't know. You've got the professional claimant syndrome, which is what you're describing there. I've said it. I remember growing up with these families within the postcode that I grew up. Well, more than just the postcode, within the road that I was in. I've never been able to fathom it. Don't know how some of these people do it. They haven't got severe disabilities. They probably do by the time they get to 60.
I don't understand it.
And I don't understand it either. Listen, Anthony,
they're playing the system really well.
Yeah, and there are still ways and means of doing that. Anthony, I wish you loads of luck.
Ian, great show. Thank you for talking to me.
It's a pleasure. You have a great Christmas, and thank you, Anthony, in Torquay. And that sounds... This is the 21st century. That's a national scandal that a man cannot turn his heating on. He's unable to work because of his disability, which came around because an operation not once but twice went wrong, which has left him in that position. He can't put his... If somebody can't put their heating on, for goodness sake, then we're in a terrible, terrible way. And apparently he can't seek any kind of legal redress on this because of the statute of limitations. If it was a medical negligence issue that caused the problem, which I think is what he's telling us, if that is the case. If you know different, do get in touch, 87222. Before we go any further, we have the voice of doom. Have we got a winner is the question. Let's have another listen to the voice we played you just before the news at 3. Here it is.
Going to be community relations.
These are some of the guesses. Hazel Blears, no. Barbara Roach, it is not. Justine Greening, Katie Lamb, Helen Wakely, no. Jeremy Corbyn, can we hear it again?
Going to be community relations.
Could be Jeremy Corbyn. Let's just hold that thought for 1 second. Zara Sultana. No, it's not him. Sorry. No, it's not Jeremy Corbyn. And the other guess was Cilla Black, and it's not our Cilla either. No right answers. It returns on Monday, right here on Talk.
You know, it's no good saying, oh, we've got a wonderful multicultural society and diverse is our strength, when you've got one group attacking another. That's no good. We cannot have this. Our Jewish friends and colleagues must feel safe in this nation, and I back them 100%.
Well, we appreciate your support, and it just makes common sense, doesn't it, Mike?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
One here says, what with Rachel Thieves wanting more of my salary and 8.7 million people on disability benefits, it's affecting my mental health. Maybe I should quit my job and claim benefits. Yeah, well, I think at this rate, when you consider, I mean, just the basics, when our last caller, Anthony, said about not being able to put his heating on, and I know his financial setup was very specific. Well, it wasn't very specific. There's lots of people in that position where you can't put your heating on. And you look at the cost of energy, and if you've got a smart meter, you can see it in real time clocking away, you know, and you stick the dishwasher on or the dryer or something, and it just goes like Billy-O, and you look at that and think, OK, if you're working and you can afford it, it's still, that doesn't mean it's OK, by the way. There's a sort of an urban myth that just if you can afford something, you find it acceptable. It's not acceptable. When I look at my energy, I know people go, yeah, but it's only like buying a couple of Costas a day. True, if you look at it that way. I don't think that's the way we should look at it. I think we should look at the fact that it's the 21st century and it's costing me, you know, £300 a month to heat my home and put the lights on. How did we get there? That's not acceptable for a modern democracy in the 21st century. Rachel's in Manchester on this benefit issue. Rachel, what have you got for us? Afternoon to you.
Oh, afternoon, Ian.
Hiya. Oh, Rachel was there and then she disappeared. I think I got a feeling she was in the car and obviously went straight through a spot that cut her off. Michael says, I 100% agree with the broken back guy, as he should now be known, Anthony. I'm exactly the same, apart from I genuinely got offered more help, but it took me careers to help. It took my career to help me, and a damn good honest doctor, carers I think I should say, to help me, and a damn good honest doctor. I let my awesome career go do to cash. I can't walk without a stick. In 3 months, I broke both knees and a foot. I don't rob the system. I've never not worked. I've offered to lick stamps. They told me it would disqualify me from getting financial help. Make that make sense. Good point, Michael. I'm glad you were able to. I mean, I'm sure you'd rather not be in that position. Of course you would rather not be in that position. But I hope you've got a little more support from what you say than Anthony. Rachel, we've got you back. Good afternoon.
Hi, yes.
Hi,
I don't know what happened.
well, the joy of mobile phones, right?
Yeah, sorry. I was just saying about Anthony with his benefits. See, he's the kind of person that does need help with filling those forms in.
Yeah.
Because they won't just give it to him. And I would suggest to him to go to his local welfare rights or the local CAB and get some help filling them in and have a look for grants.
Yeah, because they don't very often, if you fill in one form, they don't very often ring you up and go, oh mate, did you not realise actually there's another form that probably is more applicable to you, and it will put you in a better position. No one's going to make that call to you, are they?
No, no, but with the benefits, now I've got MS, so I am on full disability benefits.
Yeah.
But, mine's a progressive, horrible condition. But I've got 2 children with autism as well.
Okay.
Now, autism is different to ADHD. Autism is a chemical imbalance in your brain.
Yeah.
Whereas ADHD, I'm not quite sure what that is. But, yeah, you can get multibility for autism, which I don't have, by the way. But it's the way that you fill the forms out, and they are, like we've said, I've heard you say before on here about people going on TikTok, and you've got all these influencers, aren't you, that are telling them how to fill these forms in, and that's exactly what they're doing, because you don't have to have a diagnosis to get the disability benefit.
Yeah.
And that's directly off the back of the Equality Act 2010.
Yeah.
Because if you're in that category of a protected characteristic or disabled, then they've got to be very, very careful how they treat you, because then, you can take them to court, you can do... I mean, I've had to use it with schools, with my children who've got autism. So it comes in handy sometimes, the Equality Act, but it's a massive hindrance, and it's going to take somebody brave to actually get onto that and say, we need to look at it. And it's going to be very, very, very unpopular, obviously. Yeah. But, I mean, you can go to your doctor and you can say, I'm feeling really down, I can't go out of the house, I can do this, I can't do that. And there's no proof of that. The doctor, they can't really question you on that, I suppose, and, say that you're lying. But that'll go down on your record. And then when it comes to filling your forms in and sending evidence, that's your evidence there. So then they go... And if they're not doing face-to-face assessments anymore, like they're not always seeing these people. And it's really frustrating, because I feel vilified sometimes. Now, when I go out and I park in a disabled spot and I get out of my car, I feel like people are looking at me and saying, no, nothing wrong with you. Yeah. Or, because everybody's going on about the people with disability benefits, disability cars. I feel like I've got a target on my back at the minute.
Wow.
But I'm a genuine,
No, indeed.
genuinely
And
do.
I think most people, you know, you're not exactly going to make up having MS, are you? And then kind of go, and then go through like years of faking what might be happening to you. I mean, that would be really weird. But when we get into that area of ADHD, that's really tricky. And I guess no doctor wants to say to someone, well, you haven't got it, because I don't know how you prove that.
Well, I know my son was tested for it before he had autism, with a QB test, it's called.
Yeah.
And that came back negative, so he didn't have ADHD.
Sure.
But it is a completely different thing, and I know that some people do suffer quite badly with it.
Yeah.
But some people think that they've got it. You can go online and you can do a test.
Sure.
Have I got ADHD?
Yeah.
It's like, I've got ADHD,
Yeah.
But you haven't. And people are just using it and they're struggling.
Yeah, and also just using everyday kind of ups and downs to describe, having a mental health condition. I mean, life's full of upside downs, isn't it? I mean, it's all sorts of things happen to us in life, Rachel. When you're younger, you get dumped, or your relationship breaks up. You might get divorced. You could lose a job, and we don't all have perfect days. That's part of life.
You pick yourself up, you brush yourself off, you pull your big knickers back up, or your big underpants, and you just get on with it, don't you?
I prefer a nice knicker, frankly.
Yeah, I bet you do.
Listen, there you go. Listen, love it. Rachel, good luck with everything, and have a lovely Christmas. Thank you for calling. Rachel in Manchester. And it's interesting how many calls and comments on this. Robert says, my wife was signed off as disabled 9 years ago. We carried on working until last Christmas, where she couldn't physically do the job anymore. Now she's on disability, and we've never had it so good. We don't claim everything. We can, because we don't need it. We have both worked hard all our lives and live within our means, but now we understand why people stay on the sick. It almost forces you, and thank you, Robert, for that. It almost forces you into a kind of conspiracy theory thing. There's this whole belief that, give it a few years, AI will have kicked in and half the country won't be at work anyway. So the government are going to have to pay everybody, and most won't be working, whether they're ill or not. There just won't be jobs for those people. You kind of go into that. Is that why they don't, is that why the tests aren't more stringent? And then, of course, you hear the other story where the tests, for some people who really do have genuine issues, are so bloody stringent, they're almost kind of, something from a medieval era where you're being asked to prove your incapacity. When you can't walk, you struggle to breathe, and someone's going, if you can just do a few steps for us, please, love, that would be handy. You think, are you taking can you not see? I've got a back at 90 degrees. I can hardly budge one foot in front of another, and you're asking me to prove it? And then you have the other side of it, which is the point we're discussing here. 0344 499 1000. 25 to 4. This is Talk.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On YouTube. On your mobile. And on your side. This is Talk.
Just gone 25 to 4. Don't forget, of course, Alex Phillips here at 4 o'clock on Drive right here on Talk. Now, you may be aware there's a bit of a boxing match going on. Anthony Joshua shoving Jake Paul's fist away at that Miami weigh-in, warning, don't touch me. Yeah, in that voice. And vowed to outclass him. Ring walks are expected around about 3:30 a.m. UK time on Saturday, with the fight shortly afterwards. Let's have a reminder of that weigh-in.
I just outclassed this kid, that's all it is. I'm just going to outclass him. I'm a serious fighter. That's just the difference. I'm a serious fighter. You're going to get
No messing around. And now, ladies and gentlemen, to discuss this, stepping into the ring, former European champion, the greatest bantamweight fighter of all time, the sharpest mind in the game, and the best thing to come out of Barnet since the A5. He is Spencer, the Omen Oliver. How are you, Spencer? What about that? I'm wasted here, mate.
I'll tell you what, Ian Collins, there's a job for you after this. Don't worry about that.
Yeah,
mate.
I got
ring announcement. Do you know what? It made me feel like I was just doing that ring walk again.
Oh, you were back there, weren't you? Yeah, I took you right back to that moment. Not well, I did it for wrestling for a bit, by the way. I did a bit of wrestling commentary, and that was a strange old thing because, of course, that old shizzle is just completely made up. So he just had to read a script. It's an your sport. It's gone through so many evolutions. Just give us, from a pro point of view, a former boxer yourself, what do you make of what some people say, hang on, this is Disney boxing. You know, this is kind of, you take a YouTuber, take an athlete. This isn't what genuine boxing fans really love. What's your view on that, Spencer?
You know what, Ian? It's the changing of the times, and I think we all have to move with that. We can't be stuck in the mud. That's the reality of it. YouTube, is a huge thing. Jake Paul, you got to give the kid respect. Where he's come from. 8 years ago, the kid's doing Disney Channel. Then he sets up his own YouTube channel. Everything he touches turns to gold. Yeah. He's done phenomenally well. He took his hand at boxing. I actually co-promoted his first fight actually up in Manchester. With Stuart Jones, who was the manager at the time of KSI. KSI was boxing Logan Paul. He was on the undercard against KSI's brother. And look where this kid's come from. You've got to respect that for sure. But has he bitten off more than he can chew going into this one? Of course he has. What is he thinking, this kid? Is he delusional? Does he really think he can beat Anthony Joshua, a current fighter? Forget whether you think Joshua's, not at the top of his game anymore. In his last fight, he boxed for a world heavyweight title. Yes, he lost to Daniel Dubois, but the guy is at the top of the game still. And this is a huge ask for Jake Paul, and you got to respect it for just getting in there. Is reality kicking in now? Because there's a nervous look around this kid for sure. Yeah, and there's about an 8-foot difference in their height as well, which I'm pretty sure that wouldn't have got a free pass a little while back. Yeah, absolutely. Listen, the size difference is ridiculous. I think he weighed in at 216 pounds. Anthony Joshua come in at a career lightest for some time, actually, at 243 pounds. But his optimum weight, by the way, the best that he's ever performed, Anthony Joshua, is at around 245 pounds. So Jake Paul putting in that weight restriction has probably gone against him. I don't think they've done their homework properly, because Anthony Joshua at 245 pounds is more athletic, he's more explosive, and he's coming in at 243. So, yes, it'll be interesting to see how he approaches this one, AJ. I mean, this is going to be, the theatre that goes with boxing now, it's in a different level, isn't it? I mean, I know, boxing has always had a big audience. It's incredibly sought after for those who, certainly with a big fight, if you want to, get tickets, forget it, because, they're gone in seconds. A couple of mates of mine, they think they've worked their way around how to bid for these things. Hardly ever, once in a while, somebody stings them for a good few quid and they end up going on a nice table. But it's huge. What they've done now, though, I mean, they've turned it into something completely different. You've only got to look at the weigh in there, what they look like these days. Half an hour ago, it was a town hall somewhere, if you were lucky, with a set of those old manky scales. Yeah, absolutely. Listen, it's showbiz now, isn't it? Like, it's become an event. You know, you look around ringside and they're not boxing fans there. They're the people that just want to be at this massive event. And you're right, you go back to the 90s, like when I was boxing, and there was the top of the bill there was at York Hall, and you got the guy in the corner and he's smoking his fag and he's taking his bets.
Yeah.
You know, that's really what it was like. But now it's all just showbiz. You know, big fight week build-ups, you have the open workouts, you have the press conferences, there's always drama surrounding them, and look at the stage that's set here for, you know, the press conferences, and you see both guys going at it. It is all entertainment now. Yeah, it's entertainment / WWE / boxing all molded into one, but that's what the people like these days.
Absolutely. You just mentioned York. I used to live in the same road as York Hall, and I loved going in there down Old Ford Road, and it was just an amazing experience. You're right, there was always some fellow with a cigarette on.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. York Hall really is the mecca of boxing. They do some great shows down there still now.
Totally.
Televised shows, and I think you know, you see some unbelievable fights. There's something magical about the York Hall. I won my first amateur British title there, and I also boxed there as a pro as well, and it's a special place in my heart. Yeah,
it really is. It just like oozes and breathes boxing, doesn't it? You know, this lovely ornate building. Let's get to the reality here, though. You talked about mismatch, and you know, you look at the difference, weight, height, everything that goes with it. However, I mean, I would jump in the ring with Anthony Joshua and give it a go if I thought I was going to be paid the amount of money that these guys are going to be on. Talk us through the purse here.
Yeah, listen, $75 million split, apparently. That's the rumoured money that they are getting. It's like ridiculous money, phenomenal money. Who wouldn't get in the ring for that, for sure? Yeah. But when reality kicks in, Ian, all right, I'm going to give you a scenario here. I'm offering you 75 million quid to get in a ring with Anthony Joshua. You think, you know what, Spence, I'm having that. No problem at all. But when reality kicks in and you go stand there, stare into his eyes, you yeah.
I mean, well, if he lumped me one, I think that'd be, you know, there'd be a funeral director, not a paramedic, sitting on the side of it.
It'd be one of them cases where you'd have 75 million quid in the bank, but you might not know where the bank is.
I wouldn't know where anything was. I think you're absolutely right. What are your predictions then? I mean, I think you've sort of alluded to it already on this one, Spencer, but, you know, how far is this going to go? Because in reality, this is where people do get a bit cynical. They think, hang on a second, Anthony Joshua, Jake Paul. Joshua could simply knock him out within the first 30 seconds. That to an outsider, they would go, that clearly could happen. I bet that doesn't happen, though.
Well, listen, it's a good bet that it does happen because, you know, if the talk is the talk and the talk is the truth, there's no rules. There's no scripted rules allowed in this one. It is a boxing match, 8 3-minute rounds, 10-ounce gloves. Anthony Joshua, as you know, you've already highlighted, former Olympic champion, 2-time world heavyweight champion, and this kid coming from where he's come from, done very well to get to where he's got to, but there's levels in this game. If Anthony Joshua wants to take him out very quickly, which I suspect he will, because knowing Anthony Joshua, he's not going to be messing around. He's still got his dreams of becoming a freeweight world champion.
Yeah.
I see AJ going in there and doing a demolition job, and it could be over as early as the first.
Wow. I'm down the bookmakers after this, I'm telling you. Listen, Spencer, great to have you on. We will speak again very soon. He is Spencer Oliver, of course, TalkSport commentator and boxing commentator. Great to have him with us, former European champion himself, on that incredible... I mean, this is where boxing is going. We didn't even get into the kind of Saudi influence, who are now pulling up a lot of strings in that world now. Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul... they fight it out, what is likely to happen. Of course, full details when and as it does, that's for sure. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
You know, it's no good saying, oh, we've got a wonderful multicultural society and diverse is our strength, when you've got one group attacking another. That's no good. We cannot have this. Our Jewish friends and colleagues must feel safe in this nation, and I back them 100%.
Well, we appreciate your support, and it just makes common sense, doesn't it, Mike?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk 10 to 4. We'll chat to Alex Phillips in just a bit, find out what's going on Alex's show. Let's talk to Mark, who's in Lincolnshire. This is reference the postponement of democracy. Mark, what have you got for us? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Ian.
Hiya.
Hi, mate. Democracy, eh? What's it good for? Postponement of democracy. I think the council election thing, in my opinion, is more of a precursor, to be honest. It's like a testing ground, shall we say. This, I guess, for you will probably be quite conspiratorial, but, you know, I think that it has some basis, I think. And that is, you know, it's a precursor to the main event being the general election, Ian, which I think, I'm not convinced that we're actually going to get one.
Interesting. To be fair, Mark, a few people have kind of alluded to this afternoon.
It's becoming more of a more widely held belief, shall we say, or widely held belief, I should say. I think, for me, when you look at the stuff that's going on, everything that's going on, you've got the situation where they're tanking in the polls like, probably, you know, to quote Trump, like nobody's ever tanked before. You know, but they, instead of rowing back massively to gain some public support, they triple down, they quadruple down. They make it worse.
Yeah.
They make people hate them even more, you know. And then you look at the stuff that they're actually doing, you know, getting rid of jury trials, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So all these things are tools that you would need to stop dissension from your people, you know. So you can't legally challenge them. They can accuse you of anything, and you lose the right to defend yourself. You know, to a jury of your peers, that kind of stuff. And then you look at the manufacturing, because they're all hell-bent at the moment on manufacturing a war with Russia that doesn't need to happen.
Yeah.
So you look at all these kind of things and you start thinking...
But are they manufacturing a war?
Yes, absolutely they are. There's no need for any war with Russia. They know this. You know, at the end of the day, it depends conspiratorial you want to go here, Ian. You could look at it, you know, I've talked in the past about, you know, great replacement theories, that kind of stuff. You know, the white native race being replaced by all these immigrants, which kind of has, again, it has some basis in fact. When you look at the sheer numbers that they're bringing in, the birth rate differential.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you see, on that specific point, Mark, I'm genuinely fascinated about that. You know, that kind of slightly curious left-wing Tory whose name has just escaped me as I started to say it, the fellow that does the podcast with Alistair Campbell, Rory, what's his name? Rory Stewart. Rory Stewart. Somebody asked him about this or something about this, and he was very relaxed. And I thought, well, if somebody said to you, this particular group of people over here are procreating at 3 or 4 times the rate of this group of people, then it's just mathematics that in X amount of years, might be 50 years, there will be more of those people than those people. Now, that's not a racist point. It's not a point taking any particular... That's just a fact, right? I mean,
Yeah,
there's no way anybody can row back from that. That is literally a fact. So what does that mean then for politicians? When Rory Stewart made that point, that he was perfectly relaxed about current rates of people assimilating or not assimilating, as it may be, in this country, can he not see the mathematics of that? Even if it's not deliberate, even if the conspiracy theory doesn't hold up, then the reality is still there. That is a fact.
Indeed. I mean, on that issue, to go back to the, potential war with Russia, the kind of war they're talking about in relation to the Great Replacement, this will affect majority 18 to 30-year-olds, and it will typically be white working class British, the people they really hate, who are currently about 60-odd%, just over 60% majority. After a war, if you lost 1 million of them in a war, they'd be less than 50%.
But would that not... I mean, that would be quite a stretch, wouldn't it? So, we're going to have a war to try and wipe out X amount of... so there's fewer of them. I mean, that would be extraordinary. I don't think anyone seriously thinks there's going to be a war, though, do they, Mark?
I think they do. They have... these kind of discussions do take place.
Of course they do. And Putin said, we're ready for it. And we've had ministers talk about, being on a war footing. I don't know whether that language is replicated in France and Germany and elsewhere. It probably is. But is that not just a bit of roostering?
It could be.
I hope it is.
I don't
want a war.
I think it is a very real possibility. I think... What will happen is maybe 2028, maybe there's a British ship somewhere that gets hit. It won't get sank because they need the optics to convince the public that this has to be done now. And then, they'll just do it on the back of something like that.
But then, would Russia not have to be in on the conspiracy?
Not really, because Russia would just defend themselves. Russia wouldn't necessarily need to even act, would they? If you want to get really conspiratorial about this, Ian, again, a ship out at sea could be hit by anything, couldn't it? If they tell you...
So they would fake a missile hitting a ship?
It's a possibility, is it
not? To start a war in order to eradicate X amount of young white men, so there would be fewer of them, and that would fuel the replacement theory.
It's a theory.
It's a bloody big one, though. To be fair, though, isn't it, Mark? I mean, it's like this is beyond David Icke. Although no, maybe it's not actually. But no, on a serious point, I genuinely love talking about this because I think, like all conspiracy theories, there is always a kernel of truth in there somewhere. That's how they are able to thrive, because there is a point that is irrefutable. Listen, Mark, I've got to move because we're almost at the end. I want to get one more voice in. Have a great weekend. Have a lovely Christmas as well, Mark, in Lincolnshire. That one extra voice is Tarquin down in London. We've not got long, Tarquin, but I'm sure you can do it. Good afternoon.
Ian, just a little bit, not to be conspiratorial like you quite so much as your last call, even though I think there's a lot of, substance in what he was saying, as you said, there's got a kernel of truth in everything. But I think what concerns me, you were talking earlier on, Ian, about Starmer's attempt to delay and procrastinate the local elections next May. Would he be, and this is a rhetorical question rather because I don't really know, would he be that crafty to confect trouble in what am I talking about? The North Sea with the Russians.
Yes.
In order to think, wow, we got away with it in the local elections, how about we say, the Russians are coming, the bogeyman, let's delay the general election. That's the point I'm getting around to. What do you think? Could he be that crafty? Evil?
Yes. No, I don't know. I don't know. In a world that is completely upside down, this sort of Alice in Wonderland kaleidoscope existence we found ourselves in, I'm tempted to say anything is possible, Tarquin.
Anything is possible, I agree. I think anything is possible. This is why, we'd never do that. I think we're beyond those days now.
Getting rid of jury trials, we'd never do that, and here we are. Listen, Tarquin, we do genuinely hit the clock. Great last voice on this. Next voice you're going to hear is Alex Phillips, who's going to be right on the other side of the news at 4. What's going on, Phillips?
All right. Do you like my new voice?
Yeah. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm getting myself up, cranking up the rant machine, ready to like.
What's the rant? I mean, what is it? What's
this
really
thing that
got you?
workplaces are getting rid of Christmas. So don't wear this, don't do that, don't do, no more Christmas jumpers, blah, blah, blah. But also, there was a story I read about one particular shop someone who wasn't a Christian complained about the Christian theme of the decorations. So they said, oh, OK, we'll take them down. And I'm like, hang on.
Who complained about the Christian
Joe Public,
theme?
just a non-Christian Joe Public. But this is my rant.
Yes.
Well, it's not going to do the whole thing. A teaser, if you will. Which is, if you want to celebrate Christmas and you don't believe in God and Jesus, fine, get on with it. Don't tell other people that you've got to take the blooming Christian stuff out of it. It's our festival.
And do you know what? So often...
How dare